Chapter 978. Be careful. The system soon began to display words. The two large blood-red words were clearly different from the way it had communicated with him before. Lin Yuan? Before he could even react, Lin Yuan suddenly felt his vision blur. The image of an old man wearing a long white robe suddenly appeared in Lin Yuan's mind. Caught you. He could not see the old man's lips moving, nor could he hear his voice. However, after the two of them looked at each other, Lin Yuan suddenly understood the meaning of the other party's words. It was extremely similar to the way he communicated with the system. Lin Yuan opened his mouth but no sound came out. At this moment, the old man in white robes had already raised his right hand, aimed it at Lin Yuan and lightly clenched it. Boom. Suddenly Lin Yuan felt as if countless bombs had exploded in his mind. Other than a blank space, there was only a rumbling sound. The space began to collapse and the world began to wail. Lin Yuan was directly lifted up by an invisible and abundant force. The hard black scales on his body began to crack, then turned into fine powder and slowly scattered. Golden blood was continuously squeezed out of Lin Yuan's body. However, Lin Yuan did not feel any pain. At this moment he felt as if he was a bystander, standing to the side and watching himself, being tortured, yet unable to do anything. Boom. Boom. Another two frightening forces emerged. One of them also came from the unseen world, and the other came from Lin Yuan's body. These two forces were completely different, yet there were some similarities. They faintly appeared to be joining forces to resist the power of the old man in white robes who was trying to kill Lin Yuan. However, when the three forces collided, they were evenly matched. Clearly, no one could do anything to the other. However, taking advantage of this gap, Lin Yuan's consciousness became much clearer. Although he was still unable to move, his mind was active. The will of the world and the system had to join forces to fight evenly with the other party? Who exactly was that white-robed old man? It seems that there is something wrong with the prehistoric creatures in this world. I have trained countless hosts to fight against Hongjun. Other than Luo Ho and Yizhu who fought their way to Hongjun, the other hosts only faced the 6 sages at most. Moreover, they only met the 6 sages after fighting their way to the prehistoric world. Why is it that when it came to you, Hongjun personally attacked you before you could grow? The system's little head was obviously filled with big question marks. Hongjun? Lin Yuan was shocked. The white-robed old man didn't seem to be anything special. At most he had a sage-like aura. However, his face seemed to have some kind of special magic. You could clearly see his face, but when you turned your face away you would almost forget it. This old man was actually Hongjun. Was this a Chaos Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal who had fused with the Heavenly Tao? Lin Yuan actually didn't know how far the Heaven Martial world was from the prehistoric world. However, he knew that when Hongjun imprisoned the 6 sages and the creatures of the prehistoric world, he was also like a prisoner who could only guard the prehistoric world. Otherwise, once he left, the origin of the Heavenly Tao would return to the prehistoric world and regain control of the Heavenly Tao. At that time, it would join forces with the 6 sages and the creatures of the prehistoric world. Even Hongjun would have to flee to other worlds to avoid the danger. Therefore, Hongjun had always been very aggressive. Although he wanted to hunt down the creatures of the prehistoric world, he also wanted to conquer more worlds to provide incense power for himself. According to the universe theory of his previous life, the distance between 2 worlds was at least calculated in light years. However, the distance between these 2 unrelated worlds could be described as infinite. Even if a Chaos Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal left his own world, he wouldn't be able to easily cross the sea of suffering to find the world he wanted to go to. This distance was worthy of being called infinite. Therefore, across the infinite space, Hongjun could directly project himself into my consciousness and crush me to death? What kind of terrifying power was this? Previously, the man in the white coat called by Lin Yuan had done something similar. He killed countless cultivators who were secretly spying on him. However, the difference between the two was not small. Every inch of distance between the two of them was a qualitative change. For example, the existence of the sword immortal level could kill people from 1,000 miles away as easily as taking something out of his pocket. The Tang Dynasty sword sage Pei Min and First Madame Gong's son could throw their swords into the clouds hundreds of feet high. Looking back, the lost Yu Nu swordsmanship from the Warring States period was said to be able to destroy 3,000 soldiers with one sword. In the later period of the same era, Gunye also had the 100 Steps flying sword. However, although the latter examples could be called sword sages and sword grandmasters, they were still in the realm of mortals. Even if they could reach the peak, they couldn't be compared to the sword immortals who could control their swords for 1,000 miles. This was the difference between the man in the white coat and Hongjun. If not for the system and the will of the world working together to resist, Hongjun could easily crush him to death even if he was in the great desolate world. Although the man in the white coat's technique was terrifying, it was only displayed in the sky martial world. It was like the difference between throwing a sword and controlling it for 1,000 miles. At this moment, the collision of the three forces was coming to an end. Let's stop here for today. Hongjun slowly put down his right hand. His gaze turned and once again looked at Lin Yuan. The scene in his consciousness suddenly disappeared. The power of the system and the will of the world also coincidentally returned to their formless state. Lin Yuan exhaled a long breath of foul air, and his eyes looked a bit gloomy. The palace he lived in had already collapsed under the collision of the three powerful forces. Lin Yuan, who was crushed under the rubble, could not find a single intact scale on his body. A large amount of pink flesh was exposed to the air. Pain assaulted him like a tidal wave. This enmity, I will remember it. Demonic energy surged, evaporating the golden dragon blood on his body. The scales on the surface of his body started to grow rapidly after losing the pressure. After his external injuries had more or less recovered, Lin Yuan's figure flashed. He smashed apart the debris piled on top of him. Twisting his body, he swam out as if nothing had happened. Only the countless gray-scaled flood dragon people and brave crab people who had rushed over were left behind. They stared at the rubble with dumbfounded expressions. That was a palace made of willow stones. Even if a demonic beast of the demonic king level attacked with all its might, it might not even leave a fist-sized mark. In the end, it had only been built for 2 months and it had collapsed just like that. The Blackwater Dragon King they were loyal to was only in the desolate demonic realm. But this destructive power, wasn't it a little too terrifying? In every corner of the sky martial world, countless experts' eyes were filled with shock. They looked in the direction of the endless sea without moving. Beads of cold sweat could be seen on their foreheads. To these cultivators who had already come into contact with the limits of the world, they could not even control their basic physiological reactions. It could be seen how shocked they were. Chapter 979. Lord Tian, did you see what happened over at the Endless Sea? One of the Elysium Guardians felt a chill run down his spine, fear still lingering on his face. The Elysium Guardians, who had died tragically for spying on the Black Jiao last time, were still vivid in their minds. If it weren't for the huge commotion this time, they wouldn't have taken a look no matter what. However, they risked their lives to take a look, but they couldn't see anything. They could only feel 3 powerful auras constantly colliding and eventually dissipating into nothingness, as if they had never existed. Something is covering that area. The one called Lord Tian was a young man who looked to be in his 20s. He had red lips, white teeth, and a jade-like face. He wore a blood-red brocade robe with a black jade pendant hanging from his waist. Behind him, 6 swords that were 3 feet long floated. Whether it was the brocade robe, the black jade, or the swords, they all emitted a strong spiritual light. They were clearly not ordinary objects. Waving his hand, Lord Tian waited for the guardian of the Elysium to leave. His face gradually turned cold as he murmured, "That aura just now belonged to that person." He actually took action personally. It seems that the Black Dragon is a greater threat to him than I thought. Speaking of this, he turned his gaze to the north, and a ferocious smile gradually appeared on his face. "Since the Black Jiao is so important, I can't let you do whatever you want." As soon as he finished speaking, Lord Tian put his hands together, and his fingers moved like butterflies, creating afterimages. He quickly formed a mysterious seal, and the 6 swords behind him immediately turned into 6 streams of light and flew north. "Disciples of the Jie sect, listen up." Suddenly, a clear and cold voice rang out in some people's minds. "On the other side in the Endless Sea. Tong Tian? Lin Yuan? ? One of the 6 sages, the only one among the Sanqing sect who believed in education without discrimination? The corners of Lin Yuan's eyes twitched slightly. He couldn't possibly have to face one of the 6 sages after Hongjun left, right? Damn, was the chance of igniting the divine fire so small? Could it be that as long as he held this thing in his hand, countless powerful enemies would come knocking on his door? For a moment, Lin Yuan's eyes were filled with disdain. That's not right. If it was really the prime of Tong Tian, why would he be here? During the investiture of the gods, the entire Jie school was destroyed. The prime of Tong Tian was captured by Hongjun for Hongwan and locked up. Well, that was what was recorded in novels like The Investiture of the Gods. After that, the prime of Tong Tian rarely appeared in the myths and legends. Also, isn't the prime of Tong Tian one of the 6 saints? He can leave the chaos world? No, that wasn't right. The heaven martial world had a limit. It couldn't withstand the descent of a saint. If a saint forcefully descended into this world, they would either have to suppress their cultivation base to the limit, or return to nothingness along with this world. However, the system obviously had no intention of continuing the conversation with Lin Yuan on this topic. Even the two words sky-piercing in the beginning were just a slip of the tongue. Lord Dragon King. Moao flew over. His gaze swept across the ruins behind Lin Yuan. A look of surprise flashed across his eyes. He asked, "We just sensed an extremely terrifying aura here. Did someone attack you?" Lin Yuan was silent for a moment. Then he said calmly, "I went astray during my cultivation, causing my demonic energy to leak out. It's fine now. I'll just clean up the ruins." Moao was speechless. The surrounding gray-scaled flood dragon people and brave crab were speechless. "You went astray during your cultivation, causing your demonic energy to leak out and instantly destroy a Willowstone palace? Can't you act like a desolate demon realm cultivator? Is this something you can do? What are you looking at? Put away your eyes. Otherwise I'll poke all of you blind sooner or later." After taking a deep breath, Lin Yuan suddenly opened his mouth and roared. As soon as he finished speaking, the invisible feeling of being spied on instantly vanished. After all, after the incident with the white coat, very few people dared to continue spying on Lin Yuan. This was especially so after Lin Yuan threatened them. After all, the Black Jiao had been famous for a long time. Everyone knew that this Black Jiao had an unruly personality. If anyone insisted on going against him, they would be done for by the Black Jiao's crazy revenge. Countless experts withdrew their spying gazes. However, they still gathered together and whispered to each other. Lin Yuan's rhetoric is, in fact, the benevolent see benevolence and the wise see wisdom. Those with weaker cultivations might have believed him. After all, Lin Yuan couldn't be judged by common sense since his appearance. He could even exchange a few blows with an ancestral demon. Although they didn't dare say that he could win, it wouldn't be that easy for an ancestral demon to kill him. The young ancestral dragon from the Four Seas Dragon tribe was a bloody example. Although the Four Seas Dragon tribe had protected the Black Jiao, everyone knew that even if no one protected the Black Jiao, it was still unknown who would win. However, those with profound cultivations definitely wouldn't believe such words. This was because they could clearly sense that although there were 3 auras fighting, there were actually 4 auras in the void. The aura that was so weak that it was almost undetectable belonged to Lin Yuan. Although they couldn't see clearly, they could vaguely guess that an extremely terrifying existence was preparing to kill Lin Yuan. At the same time, the other 2 terrifying existences had protected Lin Yuan. The existence that made the first move had retreated when it saw that the situation wasn't good. As for how terrifying the 3 who made the move were, whether it was the transcendent realm or the ancestral demon realm, in the eyes of such existences, they were just ants that could be easily crushed. At this moment, the experts of various forces once again felt the terrifying background of Lin Yuan. Especially the experts of the Four Seas Dragon tribe and the Sea Monster Guild who had previously joined forces to scheme against Lin Yuan, they were even more frightened at this moment. Even if they were already cautious in their actions, the trade city was Lin Yuan's painstaking effort after all. Once they took it away, even if they didn't harm the Black Jiao's life, it was hard to guarantee that the Black Jiao wouldn't summon the mysterious expert behind him to attack them. But the problem was, things had already reached this point. It was too late to stop now. Just when the experts of both sides were scared out of their wits, a travel-worn dragon bloodline beast suddenly broke into the West Sea Dragon Palace and brought an extremely terrifying news to the West Sea Dragon King. 6 hours ago, the Outer Sea Beast had begun to attack the Great Wall of Willowshire. The messenger who came back to deliver the news hurriedly used the teleportation array with the warrant of the Four Seas Dragon Palace to send the news back in time. Otherwise, it would be a few months later when the Four Seas Dragon tribe received the news of the attack on the Great Wall of Willowshire. This matter was even beyond Lin Yuan's expectations. Because he never thought that the news of the attack on the Great Wall of Willowshire would reach the ears of the Four Seas Dragon tribe so quickly. Chapter 980. The West Sea Dragon King had his hands behind his back as he paced back and forth in the Crystal Palace. His eyes were so gloomy that they were about to drip water. To be able to stand out from countless powerful Dragon King demonic beasts and become this generation's Dragon King, the 4 great Dragon Kings were not ordinary people. Therefore, when the news from the Willowstone Great Wall came back, the West Sea Dragon King quickly realized that this was Lin Yuan's doing. Although he did not know the details, he could roughly guess that the Black Jiao had seen through their plan of boiling the frog in warm water, and then played a trick of leading the wolf into the house, leading the demonic beasts into this game? The Black Jiao is definitely not doing this just to take revenge on us. What he wants is time, and there must be, what does he want? The West Sea Dragon King's eyes narrowed into a line. His brain was spinning crazily, but no matter how hard he racked his brain, he could not figure out what benefits Lin Yuan wanted. Or rather, after the demonic beasts from the outer sea entered the game, what benefits could the Black Jiao obtain? He believed that the Black Jiao had a temper, otherwise he would not have flipped the table with the Four Seas Dragon clan. But a brute would not be able to reach this step today. The demonic beasts from the outer sea entering the game was obviously a variable brought about by the Black Jiao's careful planning, and not because of a moment of anger and unreasonable revenge. Pass down the order. For the time being, do not move. Let's see how the Sea Demon Guild will deal with it. The West Sea Dragon King could not figure out Lin Yuan's purpose, and waved his hand in annoyance. The Four Seas Dragon clan represented the current orthodox overlords of the Endless Sea, and the Sea Demon Guild represented the Sea Demon clans that lived in the Endless Sea. The relationship between the two was similar to the relationship between the royal family and the aristocratic family. Both sides had no choice but to work together most of the time. After all, the rise of the ancient clans, the greed of the demonic beasts from the outer sea, these things were not something that a single side could bear. Even if they could withstand it once or twice, their foundation would be damaged in the continuous war, and they would be replaced by other clans in the end. But this time, the scene of Black Jiao's massacre outside the Willowstone Fortress was still fresh in their minds. The three terrifying auras that had erupted from the Willowstone Sea region and shocked the entire Sky Martial continent had just disappeared. At this time, who would dare to provoke Black Jiao? Yes. The adult dragon who sent the message bowed his head silently. It didn't understand the West Sea Dragon King's decision, nor did it understand why he didn't send reinforcements to support the Great Wall of Willow. Instead, he hoped that the Siren Guild would make the first move. After all, the Four Seas Dragon clan was the mortal enemy of the Outer Sea monsters. Once the Outer Sea monsters entered the deep sea, they would never let go of the opportunity to slaughter the dragon bloodline monsters. But what could it do? It was just a small fry. It could either listen to orders or die. There was no third option. On the other hand, the Siren Guild also received the news immediately. After all, the Siren Guild's branches were spread all over the deep sea region. Moreover, their foundation was not much worse than the Four Seas Dragon clan. Although they didn't have the ability to activate the teleportation formation in an emergency like the Four Seas Dragon clan, they were still able to transmit the news quickly with the reputation of the various big clans and sufficient resources. They were only a little bit slower than the West Sea Dragon Palace. What is the attitude of the Four Seas Dragon Palace? A giant sea turtle that stood up like a human turned its head to look at the guild member who came to report the news. Its face was somewhat similar to a human's, but its dark green skin did not show any emotions. The guild member thought for a moment and said, "Although I rushed back to the headquarters as soon as possible, I'm certainly not as efficient as the Four Seas Dragon clan. Before you received the news about the attack of the Outer Sea monsters, the Four Seas Dragon clan must have already known about it. However, so far, the Four Seas Dragon clan doesn't seem to have given any orders to mobilize their troops. Seems they are planning to bide their time." The giant sea turtle was silent for a moment. Then it sneered and shook its head. It said, "The Four Seas Dragon clan is indeed getting worse with each generation. Black Jiao might have caused such a big commotion before just to intimidate them." They were indeed intimidated. A major event like the attack of the Outer Sea monsters does not allow for the slightest hesitation or negligence. Once they kill their way into the deep sea region, none of the monsters with the Dragon clan's bloodline will be able to survive. At this time, they still chose to bide their time and wait for our Siren Guild to take the lead. The guild member hesitated for a moment. Then he said, "Then should we also bide our time? After all, the Great Wall of Willows is not that easy to attack. Even if we don't send reinforcements, the Outer Sea monsters might not be able to break in. Moreover, even if they break in, they—" At this point, the guild member's voice abruptly stopped. There was indeed a blood feud between the Outer Sea demon beasts and the Dragon clan of the Four Seas. However, after so many years, the ancestors of both sides had basically died. Now, the target of the Outer Sea demon beasts' hatred was no longer the Dragon clan of the Four Seas. Almost all demon beasts with dragon bloodline were on their hunting list. And now, in the deep sea region, how many monsters did not have the Dragon clan's bloodline? The Four Seas Dragon clan can bide their time because the forces of the various sea demon clans are growing day by day. The respect for the Four Seas Dragon clan has long been lost. Therefore, as long as the outer sea monsters can't attack the Four Seas Dragon Palace. No, even if the Four Seas Dragon Palace falls, as long as the Dragon Temple exists in the Endless Sea, the Four Seas Dragon Clan can continue to maintain the strategy of biding their time. But can we? The sea areas near the Great Wall of Willows are almost all important strategic points for us. If we lose those sea areas, our connection with the land will be directly cut off. In addition, a large number of our monsters will die. If we turn around and face the Four Seas Dragon Clan that is almost at their peak, do you think they will make the same mistake that their ancestors made when they underestimated the enemy and let us grow into a big problem? The sea turtle's face was gloomy and he whispered, "The Four Seas Dragon Clan wants to borrow a knife to kill the monsters." The guild member's face was also gloomy. Now, the structure of the Endless Sea was divided into the Outer Sea Monsters and the Dragon Clan. However, the Dragon Clan was divided into various Dragon Clan clans and the orthodox Four Seas Dragon Clan. Among them, the most awkward ones were monsters like them. The Dragon Clan's blood flowed in their bodies, but they were not recognized by the Four Seas Dragon Clan. However, in the eyes of the Outer Sea Monsters, the Dragon Clan's blood in their bodies was a great sin. Therefore, they could only rely on the Four Seas Dragon Clan. Therefore, the Great Wall of Willows must not be lost. President, I understand. I will go and arrange. The guild member swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said nervously. However, before he could finish his words, the sea turtle raised its claw and interrupted him. It immediately continued, "We will not move. The Great Wall of Willows is not so easy to capture. We in the Four Seas Dragon Clan know this. If they don't move, we won't move either. Taking a step back, even if the Great Wall of Willows falls, the Four Seas Dragon Clan will not stay out of it. This time we may really have a chance to replace them." Chapter 981. The entire strategy of the Outer Sea Monster Beasts was overturned. However, there were no objections among the allied army of monsters. It was because the Black Jiao's plan was more perfect. Or rather, the probability of success was higher. Therefore, batch after batch of Outer Sea Monster Beasts began to prepare their troops outside of the Great Wall of Willow City. They were not in a hurry to attack the city. Instead, they slowly gathered all kinds of resources from the rear. They even built siege weapons on the spot. In fact, they were doing very well. However, they did not even launch a single probing attack. After the battle, at a place where the defenders of the Great Wall of Willow City could not see, a large number of Outer Sea Monster Beasts arrived at the City of Trade through a temporary teleportation formation. They easily annihilated the sunken reefs surrounding the City of Trade and the surrounding sea monster beasts. Then they split up into smaller groups and rushed towards the predetermined battle location. As for Lin Yuan, he had already built a high platform to watch the show. He was smiling as he watched the preparations for the show. In terms of military strategy, any military officer with at least 3 years of military experience would be able to easily defeat Lin Yuan. That was because Lin Yuan's knowledge came from all kinds of literature and movies. After all, he lived in Qingping era in his previous life. Therefore, he could only imitate what he saw. It was very difficult for him to deal with unexpected situations and come up with new tactics. However, if one were to look at the overall situation, even if Lei Qiuxing, Yan Xingqi and Zhao Xiang were at their peak, they would not be able to defeat him. On the battlefield, even the slightest movement could change the situation. Once Lin Yuan consumed his demonic energy and Jia's flame power, he could instantly control the entire battlefield or even a larger area. No troop's movement could escape his eyes. True and false military strategies were meaningless before his eyes that could see through everything. In addition, Lin Yuan had also consumed Jia's flame power to construct a temporary communication network. It was divided into an overall network and a regional network. As long as one's consciousness was connected to this network, even if they were very far away, they could directly transmit information through their thoughts. It was very convenient whether it was the dispatch of a large army or the command of a small army that was going to carry out a big plan. During the battle, he could even switch from the internet to the local network. Other than the general, other members could only listen to the general's orders. The combination of these two abilities instantly created an invincible war god. If one were to disregard the factor of cultivation, a person with these two abilities could easily become invincible and invincible in any low-level martial arts world in the era of cold weapons. Even if the opponent had constructed a huge net that would kill him, as long as he didn't set it up in an instant and pull it back in an instant, the connection points of the net would be destroyed and he would be defeated. Because in front of such an ability, you couldn't hide anything. The more tricks you had, the faster you would be defeated. A1, A3, and A5 are already in position. Look for the designated base on the spot. After everything is settled, search for the gathering points of dragon blood demon beasts or the teams transporting supplies in units of 100 kilometers. Kill anyone who finds anything. B2, B7, B11, and B1-13 be prepared. Once the first 3 scouting squads are engaged in a battle, support them immediately and ensure the victory of the scouting squads. Also, more importantly, do not let anyone leave alive. Also, C9, do not go any further. There is an army of dragon blood demon beasts 15 kilometers ahead of where you are right now. Both in terms of quantity and capability, they are more powerful than you. If you are engaged in a battle, your odds of winning are no more than 30%. Therefore, abandon your original route and hide here. Wait for my next instruction. Lin Yuan's voice was echoing in the communication network non-stop as he commanded the demon beasts from the outer sea in an orderly manner. It was a command plan that the leaders of the demon beasts from the outer sea had acquiesced to. Just like how the dragons of the 4 seas and the guild of sea demons were scheming against each other, few of them could resist the temptation once the command of the battle fell into their hands. After all, they only needed to move their mouths and the followers of their opponents would be killed. After the battle was over, they could easily swallow the territories of their opponents and all the benefits that they had gained in the battle. Who could resist that? The warring state's kingdom had joined forces to attack the Qin state 5 times. 2 of them won, 2 of them lost, and 1 of them was resolved without a battle. Even if the overall situation was taken into account, the Allied forces were far more powerful than the Qin state. But in the end, they were defeated because of the lack of unity. Every country had their own plans, and they were defeated faster and more ruthlessly than when they faced the Qin state alone. However, as an existence in the age of information explosion, Lin Yuan would naturally avoid such a mistake. Therefore, he took the initiative to ask for the command. With the Black Jiao's invincible prestige and the strong temptation brought by the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce, the demon beasts from the outer sea did not resist too much. However, even if the demon beast army was an army, there were still many drawbacks. For example, in the human army, there was usually a detailed division of troop types, the number of troops and so on. But the demon beasts did not have these. The combat units of the demon beasts were usually calculated by the group. After all, the demon beasts were invincible in the field under the same realm. When they encountered an opponent, they just had to rush forward. If they won, they won. If they lost, there was nothing to say. However, there were too many existences that humans could not defeat individually. They had to consider the corresponding cooperation to maximize the combat power, so the system had to be perfected. It was just that for Lin Yuan, who was used to the commander of the human army system, commanding the demon beasts to fight was really too torturous. Although the outcome of this war was already destined, Lin Yuan would not have any psychological burden for the death of these demon beasts. But after all, he was also the one who benefited from it. If he could inflict heavy losses on the Dragon Clan and the Sea Demon Guild, why not? Therefore, Lin Yuan could only make a simple formation for the demon beast army. With every 1,000 demon beasts as a unit, the number of each demon beast would be determined according to the time of dispatch. Different letters at the beginning meant that they would perform different tasks after arriving at the predetermined location. For example, the letter A was the enemy search team and the letter B was the support team. As for the cooperation between the troop types, if there was time, he could consider it. However, the demon beasts in the outer sea had different racial talents. Lin Yuan did not have an ancient human diet book, like the classic of mountains and seas, to distinguish these demon beasts. It was also impossible for him to open the Eye of God to check their attributes one by one. He could only ask roughly and directly send them out. As for whether these demon beasts were compatible with each other, only God knew. Under the observation of the Eye of God, the formations named by Lin Yuan all moved in an orderly manner. According to the information given by Lin Yuan, they easily found the nearby dragon bloodline demon beasts or bypassed the strong enemies that they could not defeat. Chapter 982. One after another, the demonic beasts went to the designated mission location. Lin Yuan's blue-white eyes flashed with a cold light. Jiao Yi, who was standing beside Lin Yuan, stared at the dynamic holographic map formed by the power of incense in front of him and sighed in amazement. When he was fighting with Lin Yuan before, he had already realized what kind of damage Lin Yuan's series of combination punches would bring to the dragon bloodline demonic beasts. But at that time it was still the most basic battle. Both sides had their own advantages and disadvantages, and they were barely in a state of equality. But when he looked at the actual war, Lin Yuan undoubtedly became more and more terrifying. Nothing could escape his eyes. The area where the dragon bloodline demonic beasts were stationed in advance was easily bypassed. The demonic beasts shuttled through various sea regions and the Great Wall of Willowshire slowly moved, transporting various materials to fill the warehouse of the Great Wall of Willowshire. Everything seemed so orderly, but the dragon bloodline demonic beasts probably didn't know that their every move was under Lin Yuan's observation. The whole battlefield was like a game of chess in Lin Yuan's eyes. However, this kind of game was obviously not so good for the commander of the other side. 5 days. In just 5 days. The most important part of the Great Wall of Willowshire's plan to resist the outer sea demonic beasts was easily destroyed. Those sea regions that could provide continuous support to the Great Wall of Willowshire were more or less attacked to varying degrees. Some of the stronger sea regions were able to withstand a few rounds of attacks, while some of the weaker sea regions were destroyed in one fell swoop. But even if the sea regions were not destroyed, they sent out signals for help again and again. They didn't dare to send any troops to transport supplies to the Great Wall of Willowshire. They had already fought with the outer sea demonic beasts, and they clearly knew that in the case of the same number of demonic beasts, they couldn't win at all. Because they were only demonic beasts, and the other side was an army of demonic beasts. Lin Yuan's backstab had almost cut off all of the Great Wall of Willowshire from receiving outside resources. After all, a place like the Great Wall of Willowshire was not a place that could produce all kinds of resources. It was mainly a place of danger and desolation. In other words, although there were a lot of troops stationed here, the people in power here had to rely on the rear to survive. There was absolutely no possibility of rebellion. Lin Yuan had taken advantage of this point to trap the defenders of the Great Wall of Willowstone. Unless the dragon race of the Four Seas and the Siren Guild took action. Commander, those outer sea demonic beasts that are attacking our rear and harassing our supply lines in the sea are truly abominable. If this goes on, our Great Wall of Willowstone will be in danger. Commander, please give the order quickly and send a troop to the rear to kill those reckless outer sea demonic beasts. A red crab race demon king stood up like a human. Blood chi burst out from his body like a long dragon. On the other hand, the demonic beast that was called Commander was a huge turtle with a metallic luster. Its shell was covered in moss and its skin was covered in spikes. Only its head was no different from a pure-blooded dragon. I hate that I agree with your decision to attack. The big turtle glanced at the red crab and said coldly, but first, how many demonic beasts are you going to bring out? So far, our scouts have not figured out how many outer sea demonic beasts there are behind us. If you bring out too few demonic beasts, not only will it be ineffective, it will also lead to the destruction of the entire army. When that happens, they will be even more rampant. The big turtle paused. Its pair of orange vertical pupils shook slightly. It continued, but if you bring too many demonic beasts, Over the past 5 days, the outer sea demonic beasts had been preparing their troops outside the Great Wall of Willowstone. If this were any other time, the defenders of the Great Wall of Willowstone would naturally be happy to do so. After all, with so many demonic beasts gathered together, the amount of food consumed every day was incomparably terrifying. No matter how well prepared the outer sea demonic beasts were, they would still be dragged to death. When that time came, they would have no choice but to retreat. On the other hand, there would not even be any casualties on the Great Wall of Willowstone. But the problem was, this was not a normal situation. The outer sea demonic beasts still had their own supply lines. Even if they were not well prepared, it would not be a problem for them to last for 1 or 2 years. But the Great Wall of Willowstone's reserves had been estimated. At most, it would be empty in another 2 months. No matter how frugal they were, it would be difficult to extend this time. Even worse was that the outer sea demonic beasts had burned, killed, and looted. Most of the sea regions had been destroyed. The remaining sea regions were the forts that the decision-makers had built in the belief that the Great Wall of Willowstone might not be safe. Their purpose was to delay the outer sea demonic beasts for a period of time after the Great Wall of Willowstone was destroyed. They would not allow the outer sea demonic beasts to directly attack the most prosperous sea regions. At the same time, as a precaution, to prevent the outer sea demonic beasts from using transmission arrays to cross over to the forts behind, none of the sea regions near the Great Wall of Willowstone had been set up with transmission arrays. The closest transmission array to the Great Wall of Willowstone required a Demon King to travel for a full 3 days and 3 nights. Currently, the rear of the Great Wall of Willowstone was in ruins. Unless it was an ancestral demon, it was impossible to cross over to the blockade of the outer sea demonic beasts. In order to deliver the message, it had already lost nearly 7 of its Demon Kings. If it sent any more Demon Kings out, it would be a huge loss. As for the direct descendants of the Four Seas Dragon clan, They were not people that these mixed-blood demonic beasts could order around. The current situation was so thorny. To clear out the outer sea demonic beasts at the rear, if it sent too few demonic beasts, it would be easy for them to be eaten by the outer sea demonic beasts. But if it sent too many, the outer sea demonic beasts outside would immediately attack. But if it did not clear out the outer sea demonic beasts? Just wait to starve to death. As for how the outer sea demonic beasts knew about the situation at the Great Wall of Willow Stone, it was as if there was a pair of invisible eyes watching their every move from the top. No matter how they moved, they could not hide from the eyes of the outer sea demonic beasts. The 7 demon kings had taken 7 different routes, but they had all died at the same time. The shattered life tokens in its hand were like a slap to its face. The only thing we can do now is to defend and wait for reinforcements. Big Turtle sighed and said in a deep voice, "We have already fallen into their trap. We can't move at all. Unless the army at the rear starts to move towards us, otherwise, wait a little longer. They already know about the outer sea demonic beast's attack. It is impossible for them to not react." Red Crab clenched its pincers and cursed, "They are really King retarded. The outer sea demonic beasts have already attacked us, but they are still fighting among themselves. Until now we have not even received any news of reinforcements. How long do we have to wait? F***CK. Chapter 983. There's actually no internal strife. Interesting. A cold glint flashed in Lin Yuan's eyes. The commander of the Great Wall of Willowstone must have a steady character because this line of defense was very important. If it weren't for the existence of the Great Wall, the number of dragon bloodline demon beasts that fought to the death with the outer sea demon beasts every year was almost uncountable. Therefore, if he wasn't a steady character, he would never have been placed in this position to guard the Great Wall of Willowstone. No one would make such a low-level mistake. Just like Dong Zhuo in the Three Kingdoms period, if the ones guarding Sisui and Hulao were not brave generals like Hua Xiong and Lu Bu, who had a strong desire to attack, but were instead generals like Su Rong and Gao Shun, even if the 18 warring states' army joined forces to attack the Great Qin Empire, which was protected by the impregnable pass, they would still be defeated like the Six Kingdoms in the warring states period. However, that big turtle didn't seem to be simple either. In such a desperate situation, not only did it manage to stay calm, even the generals around it only suggested to attack and didn't get into an extremely unpleasant situation with it. Interesting. However, you can suppress the allied forces of the Sea Demon Guild, but what about the troops of the Four Seas Dragon Clan? The corners of Lin Yuan's mouth cracked open, revealing a ferocious smile. About 15 minutes later, a demon beast that looked like an electric eel came to the Great Wall of Willowstone and said in a deep voice, "Commander, I found out that there's only one group of outer sea demon beasts that have entered the deep sea recently. It's the notorious pirate, Sunken Reef, group in the outer sea. It said that they were ordered by a big shot of the Four Seas Dragon Clan to attack the Willowstone Sea and besiege the Black Jiao. They also used the line of defense of the Four Seas Dragon Clan. Except for them, there's no record of a large number of outer sea demon beasts entering the deep sea recently." Just as Lin Yuan had expected. The outer sea demon beasts that suddenly appeared behind them and cut off their food supply undoubtedly made them gnash their teeth in hatred. Furthermore, the Great Willowstone Wall was the first line of defense that separated the deep sea from the outer sea. No matter what method they used, it was impossible for them to pass through it directly. Just like how Lin Yuan had entered the deep sea before, they had also detected him. However, with the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas suppressing them, they did not attack Lin Yuan. Otherwise, the endless sea that was full of demon beasts would not be so peaceful. Especially at the border between the deep sea and the outer sea, the various clans of the deep sea had stationed a large number of troops. If it were not for the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas secretly escorting them, how could they not encounter a single demon beast? Good. Red Crab opened his eyes wide and said, "These pure-blooded dragons really treat the Great Wall of Willowstone as their private property. They let whoever they want through without even saying a word to us. King Horse. This time they let in a group of outer sea demon beasts, which caused our current predicament, and they actually have the face to ask us to find a way to solve the transportation problem every day." Seeing that the demon beasts around all had angry looks on their faces, Big Turtle's heart suddenly sank. In the next moment, endless demon chi swept out and almost instantly turned the quasi-demon king realm electric eel in front of him into a pile of minced meat. The corners of Big Turtle's eyes twitched a few times, then it said in a loud voice, "Damn it, it is a spy of the enemy. If that is the case, it should have paid attention to the overall situation and reported it to me in private. How could it say that in public? Isn't it disturbing the morale of my army? It should be killed. The surrounding demon beasts with blood-red eyes paused as their commander made a move. There was a hint of resentment in their eyes. Was that electric eel demon beast really a spy? I'm afraid not. They were all existences that were stationed on the Great Wall of Willowstone all year round. They naturally understood their commander's temperament. Suddenly learning that the outer sea demon beasts were actually released into the deep sea by the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas, and that the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas had been causing a ruckus during this period of time, spreading this news would definitely make these demon beasts extremely anxious. But what if they only told their commander? Then it would still die. It was just that this news would be deliberately covered up by their commander. In the end, their commander was still seeking stability. Right now, it was said that the number of demon beasts was insufficient, but the increasingly empty granary was clearly like a mountain pressing down on their hearts. However, there were powerful enemies on the outside and the outer sea demon beasts ambushing the supply troops behind them. They could only hole up in the Great Wall of Willowstone to struggle at death's door. Their hearts had long been ignited with a nameless fire. But at this time, a conflict with the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas broke out. A cold light flashed in Red Crab's eyes. He said in a low voice, "Commander, this spy has already spread the news. If there is no explanation for this matter, I'm afraid the brothers below won't accept it." The commander's eyes narrowed slightly. He said in a cold voice, "Then what do you mean? You want me to confront the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas? Can't you see that this is the enemy trying to disturb our morale?" Even if the sunken reef was let in by the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas, it should be in the Willowstone region right now. Even if it was really done by them, how many demon beasts could enter this sunken reef? At this point, the commander's heart suddenly sank. A sharp light flashed in his eyes. What this subordinate means is, why don't we beat them at their own game? Red Crab cupped his pincers. He said in a cold voice, "Even if it is a spy, it can't be that the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas wants to harm themselves, right? Therefore, the matter here definitely hasn't spread. What I mean is, why don't we use this matter to counterattack? In any case, the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas is causing a ruckus every day. They want us to deal with those outer sea demon beasts ambushing the supply troops. However, the matter of this sunken reef is most likely true. Perhaps we can let the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas go to the rear and clean up those damned outer sea demon beasts?" The Dragon Clan of the Four Seas go to the rear? A sharp light flashed in the commander's eyes. Although each demon beast clan was responsible for their own sections of the city wall, there was no doubt that the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas built the Willowstone city wall to defend against the outer sea demon beasts. However, they wouldn't leave the important strategic areas to their own clansmen. Therefore, over the years, the ones fighting against the outer sea demon beasts were basically the members of the various sea demon beast clans. The Dragon Clan of the Four Seas, at most they would provide support from the side. If the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas left the defensive line, it didn't seem to have much of an impact. Gulp. Red Crab swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He spoke again, "Furthermore, we are only asking them to give us an explanation. After all, they were the ones who let this sunken reef in. They must have counted the number of people. To them, this task isn't difficult. Firstly, it can solve the problem of the supply troops. Secondly, the outer sea demon beasts are currently preparing their troops. We don't know when they will attack. If they accept the order to clean up the rear, they can avoid a direct confrontation with the main force of the outer sea demon beast. They have no reason to refuse. Then let's do it." The commander let out a long breath. Finally, he nodded and approved of the decision to attack. Chapter 984. Heh. Seeing Big Turtle nod, Lin Yuan could not help but sneer again. The Sea Monster Guild and the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas, these two behemoths had always been scheming against each other. This would not change no matter where they were. After all, the City of Trade had not opened yet. Those who knew that Lin Yuan had the teleportation formation were basically Monster Kings and Ancestral Monster Realm big shots. They were different from this group of people who were always stationed at the Great Wall of Willowshire. At this moment, these big shots were still safely at the rear, silently competing to see who would be the first to lend a hand. Therefore, the defenders of the Great Wall of Willowshire did not immediately think of the teleportation formation. It was just that this commander had a steady temperament. He would not easily split his troops to attack the outer sea monsters that were intercepting the supply convoy. After all, to be able to destroy so many seas, intercept so many supply convoys at the same time, and even have the strength to spare to kill 7 monster kings who were sent out to deliver the message. If it were not for Lin Yuan's command, even if the outer sea monsters were far stronger than the so-called sunken reef pirates, they would not have been able to do this. Big Turtle did not know that there was an invisible commander like Lin Yuan, and did not know about the existence of the teleportation formation. The Dragon Clan of the Four Seas would not tell them how many sunken reef monsters were released into the deep sea. Therefore, they instinctively guessed that there were actually a lot of outer sea monsters behind them. If the main force of the Great Wall of Willow Shire came out, Lin Yuan would have to temporarily avoid them. However, if it was the troops of the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas on the Great Wall of Willow Shire, even if they came out in full force, what was there to be afraid of? Turning his gaze slightly, Lin Yuan's gaze fell on a sea area that had just been demolished into ruins. He said in a deep voice, "The troops near the sea area should immediately evacuate and no longer continue to fight the enemy. Troops A and B should scatter and hide. Do not attack unless it is absolutely necessary. Troops C should continue to perform their duties and execute according to the plan. Do not completely destroy the materials in those sea areas. When encountering troops from the Great Wall of Lushire, they should immediately evacuate and lead them deeper into the sea. Wait for the time to close the net. In addition, Troops D should quickly get into position to ensure that no defeated troops will escape into the Great Wall of Lushire after the battle begins." There was no need to observe the negotiations between the dragon race of the Four Seas and the commander-in-chief. Just like what the Red Crab said, without knowing that Lin Yuan has a transmission array, the only people who can attack the rear of the sea monsters can only be the pirates of the Sunken Reef. No one knows the strength of the Sunken Reef better than the Four Seas Dragon Clan, who let the Sunken Reef into the deep sea area. Then, look at the main force of the outer sea demonic beasts outside the Great Wall of Lushire. Who was he supposed to beat up? How could he not know? Not only would the dragons of the Four Seas not refuse this mission, they would even happily accept it and leave in a mighty manner. However, they would encounter all sorts of ruins and wreckage along the way, and because they had yet to solve the problem of the sunken reefs behind them, their supplies were still insufficient. They were more than happy to not have to return to the Great Wall of Willows and face the incomparably ferocious outer sea monsters. After walking to a certain distance, they would gradually lose contact with the Great Wall of Willow Shire. At that time, they would coincidentally find the sea areas with resources, and coincidentally encounter the outer sea monsters that were still in the Sea of Destruction and had not retreated in time. At that time, they would inevitably gather resources and chase after them. As more and more resources were collected, the troops would become more and more bloated, and the battle line would also become longer and longer. At that time, if they were to attack head-on, then the entire army of the Four Seas Dragon Clan would collapse and flee in the direction of the Great Wall of Willows. Because from the very beginning Lin Yuan had been deliberately guiding them. There was a saying in his previous life, "The fear of humans often comes from the unknown." Actually, it was just right to use it here. When the dragons of the Four Seas Dragon Clan always thought that they were only going to face pirates of the Sunken Reef scale, and all the enemies they encountered along the way fled at the mere sight of them, they would certainly do this. However, once they hit a wall, they would quickly realize that they had been deceived, and the so-called morale of the army would collapse in an instant. In this deliberately stretched battle line, all the outer sea monsters would begin to chase after and eliminate them. If they could get back to the Great Wall of Willows, then there would be less than a tenth of them left. If these monsters also died and were killed under the eyes of the defenders of the Great Wall of Willows, it would also be a blow to their morale. Taking a step back, even if they did not escape to the vicinity of the Great Wall of Willows, so what? The problem of supplies still had not been solved. Instead, the entire army of the Four Seas Dragon Clan had retreated, and the outer sea monsters had to send out a troop to guard the gap created by the retreat of the Four Seas Dragon Clan. If these monsters did not return when the war began, negative emotions such as resentment would inevitably appear, and their will to fight to the death would also be extinguished. The so-called Great Wall of Willows would no longer be so terrifying. From the very beginning, Lin Yuan did not think that a simple conspiracy would be able to achieve success. After all, the proper art of war required the right combination, and the unorthodox path also required the right combination of yin and yang. Since he had already used a conspiracy to restrict the defenders of the Great Wall of Willows, wouldn't it be better to supplement it with an overt scheme to make the relationship between the two sides even more tense? Then another 3 days passed. Under the guidance of the troops that started with the letter C, the troops of the Four Seas Dragon Clan continued to penetrate deeper into the hinterland. Even if they managed to retrieve the supplies they collected along the way back to the Great Wall of Willows, they would still be able to buy about a month's time. If the reinforcements of the Four Seas Dragon Clan and the Sea Monster Guild had yet to arrive after this period of time, their defeat would naturally be settled. However, intelligent creatures had always been insatiable. Even if they managed to collect the supplies, the troops of the Four Seas Dragon Clan were very clear that if they continued forward, they would reach the true hinterland. Judging from the actions of these outer sea monsters along the way, if they left them alone, it would definitely be a disaster. Besides, they had already chased them all the way here. If they turned back to the Great Wall of Willows without doing anything, wouldn't it make them look like they were useless? Therefore, under Lin Yuan's arrangement, the troops belonging to the Four Seas Dragon Clan fiercely collided with the outer sea monsters that had gathered together. Even before the two sides clashed, the generals of the Four Seas Dragon Clan realized that they were definitely not facing those loosely disciplined Sunken Reef pirates, but a well-trained elite troop that had been in disguise all along. Therefore, the troops were defeated like a landslide. In other words, they did not dare to fight at all. They fled madly in the direction of the Great Wall of Willows, not even having the time to care about the supplies they had painstakingly collected along the way. They only cared about running for their lives and did not even have a decent counterattack. Chapter 985. Kill them all. Lin Yuan's cold voice sounded in the command channel. Troop A was in charge of engaging the enemy, Troop B was in charge of supporting the battlefield, and Troop C was in charge of cleaning up the deserters and the wreckage after the battle. Troop D, which had been conserving their strength throughout the entire plan and hadn't even experienced many battles, quickly bared their fangs under Lin Yuan's command and directly cut off the Four Seas Dragon Clan's path of return to the Great Willow Wall. A one-sided battle. A pursuit that could be called a massacre. Plus, the troops that were trapped in the Great Willow Wall, their resources were getting increasingly scarce and they couldn't move. Moao, who had torn a dragon bloodline demon beast to shreds, wiped away the blood that had splattered around his eyes and turned to look in the direction of the city of trade. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. What a scheme of ghosts and gods. If His Majesty also had such a genius to assist him, wouldn't the unification of the Endless Sea be just around the corner? Without the connection of the all-life scripture, Lin Yuan naturally couldn't hear Moao's thoughts. Even if he heard it, he wouldn't shamelessly agree to it. After all, this battle wasn't a scheme of ghosts and gods from the start. In the end, it was only because he was using cheats. He used the Eye of God to survey the entire situation, and he used the power of Joss Flames to communicate. This series of operations had almost turned all of the outer sea monster beasts that were participating in the battle at the rear into his followers. They were shocked by his command and foresight. Even if they were followers, they could still produce a little bit of Joss Flames a day. Therefore, not only did he not consume any Joss Flames, he actually obtained more Joss Flames. This was a huge profit. On the other side, in the camp of the Outer Sea Demon Beast Alliance, the human who was called a mutant, touched his smooth chin and pointed at the wall of the Great Wall of Willow Stone. Then he began to communicate with the other leaders of the Outer Ocean's demon forces. Although Lin Yuan's plan was very impressive, everyone knew in their hearts that the Four Seas Dragon Clan and the Sea Demon Guild wouldn't really watch them invade the deep sea without doing anything. Especially now, those demon beasts from the outer ocean who were responsible for intercepting the supply wagons were about to charge into the most prosperous hinterland. It would be strange if they still didn't move. They had to completely eliminate the defenders of the Great Wall of Willow City before the reinforcements of the Dragon Tribe and the Siren Guild arrived. By then they could rely on the past to give these reinforcements a fatal blow. On the other hand, if they couldn't take down the Great Wall of Willow City before the reinforcements arrived, the coalition forces attacking the deep sea region would become a complete joke. Not only did the Black Jiao help you restrain the defenders of the Great Wall of Lucier, they were also waiting for you to come over and put the nail in the coffin. But now that you pulled a stunt and forgot to bring the hammer and nail, even if the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce came over, they might not be able to cooperate with you. As the leaders of these outer ocean forces reached a consensus, the sound of conches immediately rang out in the camp of the Allied army. A large number of outer ocean demon beasts who had been recuperating stood up and looked coldly at the walls of the Great Wall of Willows. Why now? Did something happen to Aoze and the others? The commander's orange eyes flickered slightly as he looked at those outer ocean demon beasts who were getting closer and closer with a face full of disbelief. These guys had been bombing outside the Great Wall of Willows for half a month. They didn't attack earlier or later but chose to attack now? Especially as the dragon tribe of the Four Seas gradually moved further and further away, the information that could be sent in one day would now take at least 3 to 5 days to reach the Great Wall of Willows. Sometimes they didn't even bother to go through the process, as if they had completely disappeared. If it wasn't clear how cruel the dragon tribe of the Four Seas were to traitors and derelicts, it would have thought that the dragon tribe of the Four Seas had found a safe sea region and stayed there, silently waiting for the outcome of the battle here to be announced. Wait, I fell into a trap? A cold light flashed in the eyes of the big turtle as it murmured with a face full of disbelief. The current situation of the Great Wall of Willows was within the opponent's calculations. This was never beyond its expectations. However, the opponent used the name of sinking the reef to trick them into falling out with the dragon tribe of the Four Seas. Then they immediately set up a trap to kill the dragon tribe of the Four Seas. Through some unknown means, they contacted the outer ocean demon beasts outside the Great Wall of Willows and made them attack before the reinforcements arrived. So that's how it is, hee hee ha ha ha. The big turtle softly murmured to itself, its face full of sadness and self-blame. Because only now did it realize that the opponent's plan revolved around it from the very beginning. If it wasn't for being overly cautious and sending troops to clear out the outer ocean demon beasts at the rear, even if the front line was tight, it might not be impossible to drive back the outer ocean demon beasts' attack by shedding more blood. If it wasn't for the faint grudge in its heart against the dragon tribe of the Four Seas, it wouldn't have allowed the dragon tribe of the Four Seas to leave the defensive line, resulting in the current situation. To be honest, the dragon tribe of the Four Seas leaving the defensive line at the Great Wall of Willows was actually a small matter. After all, it wasn't a particularly important area in the first place, so it couldn't be lost. With the current forces at hand, it was more than enough to deal with it. However, so far, the Great Wall of Willows hadn't received any supplies, and it was trying its best to save as much food as possible. Not to mention that the troops under its command had lost the ability to fight, it was inevitable that it would complain in its heart. And now, although its rationality was telling itself that the dragon tribe of the Four Seas troops were most likely wiped out, there seemed to be another voice in its heart that was shouting. Those dragon tribe had clearly escaped to a safe place and didn't want to return to this oppressive Great Wall of Willows. If even it was like this, then what would the demon beasts below think? The general had no battle intent, and the soldiers had no battle intent. This battle was bound to be lost. Taking a step back, even if it was lucky enough to survive, what could it do? After all, those dragon tribe of the Four Seas were sent out by it. Now that they were wiped out by the enemy, with the temperament of the dragon tribe of the Four Seas, the dragon tribe of the Four Seas would definitely not let this matter rest. After all, there were very few pure-blood dragon tribe members to begin with, let alone an organized dragon tribe army. Even if they were divided into the dragon palace of the Four Seas, it would still be a huge loss. If they investigated a little later, they would be able to find out that it was it that ordered the dragon tribe of the Four Seas to attack and eliminate the demon beasts in the outer seas. When that time came, the dragon tribe of the Four Seas would definitely make it pay with its life. On the other hand, on the side of the Sea Demon Guild, it was normal for them to be in a state of disunity. Although they wholeheartedly agreed with what it was doing, when faced with the anger of the dragon tribe of the Four Seas, they would still push it out without hesitation to quell the anger of the dragon tribe of the Four Seas. So in this battle, losing meant death. Winning? That was also death. When Lin Yuan's plan was revealed layer by layer, a layer of haze that couldn't be removed gradually shrouded the commander-in-chief's heart. Chapter 986. When a person or a demonic beast realized that they were already in a situation where death was inevitable, it was definitely the time when they started to go crazy. After guessing their own ending, the choice was actually very important. It could continue to carry out its duty and lead the demonic beasts under its command to repel the attacks of the demonic beasts from the outer sea and then calmly accept its death. It could also ignore it and allow the outer sea demonic beasts to break through this impregnable pass and bring everyone down with them. I admit that I took a gamble, but that's not important anymore. Anyway, the ending is already decided. It's just a matter of how difficult it is. Lin Yuan chuckled as he looked at the big turtle whose face was filled with despair. His gaze gradually became meaningful. He smiled and said, "I heard that when an honest person is angry, those who usually bully him don't even have the right to kneel. If you weren't an honest person, why would you end up being placed on the Great Wall of Willow Shire and forgotten by everyone? Then let me see, the anger of an honest person." At this moment it seemed to have sensed something. The big turtle suddenly turned its head and looked at the endless darkness behind it. It roared, "You want me to surrender without a fight? Dream on. All soldiers, listen to my orders and guard the areas you are in charge of. Supervisors, listen to my orders. With me as the boundary, kill anyone who is half a step behind me without mercy." The big turtle's roar reverberated on this section of the city wall. It was brought to various sections of the city wall by the messengers and supervisors. "You're quite something. What a pity." Below the city wall, Mo brandished his two iron hammers. He raised his head and glanced at the hysterical big turtle. The demonic energy around his body rippled, deflecting all the incoming arrows to one side. With a hideous grin, he stepped on the willow stone city wall and flew upwards. It was still the same saying. The general had no fighting spirit and the soldiers had no fighting spirit. This battle had been dragged on until now. The defenders of the Great Wall of Willow Shire would still be defeated without a doubt. Even if their general was unwilling to give up, it did not mean that the other demonic beasts would have the same attitude. After all, it was an indisputable fact that the demonic beasts in the Outer Sea hated the dragon bloodline demonic beasts. However, the demonic beasts in the Outer Sea were not fools. They would also choose to accept the dragon bloodline demonic beasts that were willing to surrender. Just like the evil dragons who had escaped the supervision of the Four Seas in the early years, except for the majority of the evil dragons who formed the evil dragon camp, the rest of the demonic beasts lived in seclusion in the Outer Sea. During the Warring States period, Wu and Lord Baichi killed 400,000 Zhao soldiers in one battle, causing the Zhao people to think that surrendering to the Qin was a dead end. That was why there was such a tragic Handan protection battle. But at the end of the day, the state of Zhao lost because they had no food. The reason why Baichi killed the surrendered soldiers of Zhao state was because they did not have enough food and fodder. If Qin state could afford to feed 400,000 Zhao soldiers, why would they kill so many young and strong men? The demon beasts in the Outer Seas, who didn't have such worries, naturally wouldn't make such a mistake. Otherwise, with so many dragon bloodline demon beasts living in seclusion in the Outer Seas, this kind of news couldn't have been released by the Four Seas Dragon Clan and Sea Monster Guild to dissuade their subordinates from fighting the demon beasts in the Outer Seas, right? So that's how it is. Lin Yuan's eyes flashed. The relationship between the Outer Sea monsters and the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas had always been a mystery. According to the history compiled by the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas, the so-called Outer Sea monsters were chased out by the four ancestral dragons of the Four Seas together with the Deep Sea clans. This was because the bloodlines of these monsters were weak. Even if they combined with the bloodlines of the Dragon Clan, they would only tarnish the bloodlines of the Dragon Clan. But the problem was that the Dragon King of the Four Seas was the leader of the scale insects in the untainted world. Even if they were extremely weak after the first tribulation of the Dragon Han era, they were still able to occupy the Four Seas and establish themselves as kings. At that time, although the Four Seas Dragon King was no longer powerful, it was still not something that ordinary powers in the untainted world could compare to. Such a colossus, even if they had fled to the Qianwu world as exiles, would still be domineering and unruly. After all, although the original aborigines of the Endless Sea were not weak, they definitely did not have the strength to contend with the Four Seas Dragon Clan. And Lin Yuan had already experienced the style of the Four Seas Dragon Clan. If the demon beasts in the Outer Seas were really weak, then it was not as simple as being driven out by the Four Seas Dragon Clan. In fact, from this point of view, the ancestors of the demon beasts that were driven out definitely had the strength to contend with the Four Seas Dragon Clan. In other words, they were driven out only because their comprehensive strength was not as strong as the Four Seas Dragon Clan. But if the Four Seas Dragon Clan wanted to destroy them, they would have to pay a great price. But the actions of the Four Seas Dragon Clan were not like the history they compiled. Not only did they let go of those rebels who were unwilling to submit, but they also specially spent a lot of money to build a series of defensive fortifications, such as the Great Willow Stone Wall, at the junction between the Outer Seas and the Deep Sea. Obviously, they were worried about the counterattack of the demon beasts that were driven out of the Outer Seas. The game between the aborigines of the Endless Sea and the Four Seas Dragon Clan had actually started countless years ago. Now, Lin Yuan was just an invisible push hand. The reason why the demon beasts in the Outer Seas cooperated with Lin Yuan to attack the Deep Sea was not because of the blood feud between the two clans. On the contrary, they had long been preparing for this kind of thing. Cooperating with Lin Yuan was, first, for the rich profits of the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce. Second, because Lin Yuan could directly help them eliminate the obstacle, the Great Willow Stone Wall, at the lowest cost. Phew. Letting out a long breath, Lin Yuan shook his head with a chuckle and murmured, "All living beings are chess pieces. The general trend opposes the general trend. It seems that my previous judgment may not be accurate. These demon beasts from the Outer Seas have definitely come prepared. It seems that this time, even if the ancestor demon experts of the Four Seas Dragon Clan and the Sea Monster Guild take action, they may not be able to easily suppress the demon beasts from the outer seas. Standing beside Lin Yuan, Cyrus pondered for a moment and suddenly said with a smile, "If things are like this, it will be more advantageous for us. If the battle goes on for a long time and the great Willow Stone Wall is breached, the Endless Sea will no longer be divided into the inner and outer seas. The three colossal forces will be separated and the gap between them will inevitably increase. We will have a better space to develop." "I hope so." Lin Yuan sighed softly. Everyone knew the strategy of driving the wolf to devour the tiger. But who knew that if they tried to drive the wolf to devour the tiger, they might run the risk of being devoured by the tiger and the wolf before the plan could succeed? Since the demon beasts from the outer seas were taking advantage of the situation, why didn't they confront each other directly from the beginning? Who knew if they had any designs on the city of trade? Cyrus pondered for a moment and suddenly said, "Dragon King, the general trend has been set. Between the demon beasts from the outer seas and the dragon bloodline demon beasts, one will die and the other will be injured. Otherwise this war will never end. What we should do now is to watch the show instead of trying to change the trend. With our current strength in the Endless Sea, even if we stand on the weaker side, we can't change anything." Chapter 987. The Willow Stone Great Wall was the first line of defense against the outer sea monster beasts. It was the barrier that the dragon bloodline monster beasts relied on the most. But in front of the outer sea monster beasts, it was like a piece of paper. In less than a month, the outer sea monster beasts had completely conquered the Willow Stone Great Wall. If it weren't for the sturdiness of the Willow Stones, the Willow Stone Great Wall would have been completely destroyed by the outer sea monster beasts. "Bastard, you should be killed." The West Sea Dragon King paced back and forth with his dragon claws behind his back. His vertical pupils flashed with a cold light. The bastard he was talking about was undoubtedly Lin Yuan, who was frowning at the moment. In fact, Lin Yuan's actions were difficult for the dragon tribe of the Four Seas to understand. After all, Lin Yuan was also a dragon blood demonic beast. Moreover, he was not one of the bastards in the Endless Sea. After all, although Lin Yuan was a flood dragon and not a real dragon, he was a pure-blooded flood dragon. According to the ancient records of the dragon tribe of the Four Seas, with this level of bloodline purity, if his cultivation was successful, he would definitely be able to pass the heavenly tribulation and turn into a real dragon. Moreover, he belonged to the noble true dragon species. The winged dragon that assisted the Yellow Emperor in unifying the world was only a true dragon species of this level. Just like the daughter of the Four Seas Dragon King Ao Qian, strictly speaking, had the blood of a true dragon flowing in her body. She was also a superior species among the pure-blooded dragons. However, when facing Lin Yuan, the Black Jiao, she still felt that the power of Lin Yuan's bloodline was nobler and purer than her own. However, although he was a dragon blood demonic beast that had the potential to evolve into a true dragon, the Black Jiao did not care about the interests of the dragon tribe of the Four Seas at all. Instead, he set traps everywhere as if he wanted to exterminate the dragon tribe of the Four Seas. At this moment, he even joined forces with the outer sea demonic beasts to attack the Great Wall of Willow Stone, almost directly forcing the dragon tribe of the Four Seas into a desperate situation. Those were the outer sea demonic beasts, the dragon blood demonic beasts' blood enemy. Yes, the dragon race of the Four Seas wanted the city of trade in the northern frontier. It was true that they coveted Lin Yuan's current power. But now the attitude of the Four Seas dragon race was different from before. Several ancestral dragons treated Black Jiao as an existence on the same level. They wanted Black Jiao's authority, but they were not stingy in promising the seventh seat of the Dragon God Temple, allowing Black Jiao to enjoy the honor of being a dragon god with his desolate demon cultivation. So what if the authority of the northern frontier was merged into the dragon race of the Four Seas? At that time, Black Jiao would naturally become the only true ruler of the Four Seas Dragon Clan. Not only would his power not be affected, but it would also improve. With the support of the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas and the Endless Sea as a treasure trove, the comprehensive strength of the entire northern frontier would skyrocket. At that time, even if Lin Yuan wanted to take on the three identities of Dragon God, Beast Master, and Emperor, it would only take a single thought. But unfortunately, the West Sea Dragon King's eyes flashed with a crazy cold light. He roared, "Pass down my king's order." All the tribes under the West Sea Dragon Palace immediately set off for the Great Wall of Willow Shire. Gather the defeated troops along the way and prepare for the decisive battle. If you encounter any non-dronic beasts, kill them regardless of their background or origin. As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of a dragon's roar spread out. The demonic beasts of the dragon clan, who had already prepared their martial arts, roared in agreement. Soon after, they moved in unison toward the area where the Great Wall of Willow Shire was located. Not long after the tribes under the dragon race of the Four Seas set off, the troops gathered by the Sea Demon Guild followed closely behind. No matter what kind of grievances there were between the dragon race of the Four Seas and the Sea Demon Guild, the outer sea demonic beasts must be dealt with first. Before, they did not move because they were worried that they would be the first to lose too much power in the war with the outer sea demonic beasts and be swallowed by the dragon race of the Four Seas. But now was not the time to worry so much. No one expected that the Great Wall of Willow Shire would be taken down so easily. The following battle was not a defensive battle at all. Instead, it was a fierce battle between the outer sea demonic beasts and the dragon bloodline demonic beasts in the open sea. This time, not to mention the powerful aura that erupted from the City of Trade, unless the Black Jiao really shed all pretense of cordiality and called out some powerhouses that they could not resist to slaughter them, there was no way they could stop them. After the dragon bloodline demonic beasts' allied army was sent out, Lin Yuan said calmly in the command network, "Everyone, this king promised you that he would capture the Great Wall of Willow Shire at the lowest cost. Now that he has fulfilled his promise, this king will not participate in the following battle. No matter how you win or lose, it has nothing to do with this king." As soon as his voice fell, Lin Yuan decisively cut off the power of incense that supplied the communication network and the teleportation formation. Because of Lin Yuan's decisiveness, the outer sea demonic beasts, who were still immersed in the joy of victory, looked at each other in bewilderment, hesitating to speak. It could not be helped. Wars between demonic beasts had always been cruel and bloody. For example, when the demonic beasts of the Hengduan mountain range attacked the cities of human beings, they would charge at the cities directly and climb up the city walls to fight the cultivators no matter how many casualties they had to pay. The battle would not be over until one of the parties was completely wiped out. After experiencing Lin Yuan as a commander who could foresee the enemy's moves, it was indeed difficult for them to accept such a primitive war. To put it simply, without Lin Yuan's help, it would be impossible for them to avoid the enemy's powerful army perfectly, nor would they be able to catch all the spies and scouts that were everywhere. They could only gather their main forces and fight the enemy head-on like the dragon bloodline demonic beasts did. By then, the outer sea demonic beasts, who were not very strong, would definitely be wiped out. It seems that the Black Jiao has guessed something. The strange man was half squatting at the bottom of the sea. A meaningful look flashed in his eyes. The water around him seemed to be alive and took the initiative to avoid the area around him. It did not wet his clothes or affect his movements, but it still provided oxygen to him. So what if he has guessed it? A demonic beast that looked like a crocodile spoke in a low, muffled voice. Now that the Great Wall of Willow City has been taken down, how many of our brothers have those dragon bloodline demonic beasts taken advantage of the terrain of the city? Now that they have lost their reliance, they will realize that they have become extremely weak. If they fight us head-on, they will only be torn apart by us easily. At this moment, another demonic beast with a shark head and black skin said, "Poison Scale, don't forget that no matter how weak the dragons of the Four Seas are, they still have experts of the ancestral demon realm behind them. Putting aside the number of demonic beasts on both sides, in terms of quality, we are the ones who are at a disadvantage. Tundin, this king doesn't need you to remind him." Poison Scale, the crocodile demonic beast, turned his head to look at the shark demonic beast and sneered. Those ancestral demon realm experts all cherish their divine power. As long as we are not scared off, would they really dare to attack us at all costs? Chapter 988. Tun Dun snorted coldly and turned his head to the side, clearly too lazy to argue with Du Lin. The corners of Strange Man's mouth twitched slightly and he said with a bitter smile, "My lords, why are you so angry? Lord Tun Dun is speaking the truth. Our top fighting strength is far less than the dragon bloodline demon beasts. If those demon ancestors really take action, we might really be pushed back. However, didn't Lord Du Lin say that he would contact the demon ancestors of the god worship sect to help us?" What? Hearing this, Du Lin's nostrils suddenly snorted and a terrifying power erupted. His breath alone pushed away the extremely dense seawater in the depths of the sea. He then said in a deep voice, "Those guys are not reliable at all. Although they agreed to help, they are only helping us because of their ancestral relationship. Therefore don't expect them to do too much. If the demon ancestors of the dragon bloodline demon beasts don't take action, then those from the god worship sect won't either." So you mean that they will only take action if the demon ancestors of the dragon bloodline demon beasts take action? Tun Dun sneered and said in a strange tone, then can I understand that they don't want to help us at all? Even if the demon ancestors of the dragon bloodline demon beasts take action, if they feel that they can't beat them, they will choose not to help? Say what you will. Du Lin mimicked Tun Dun and turned his head to the side, but did not directly refute Tun Dun. The man let out a sigh. The outer sea demon beasts were divided into different territories. Tun Dun and Du Lin's territories were very close to each other. There were even rumors that the ancestor of these two demon beasts was the same great demon. Therefore their territories were very close to each other and they even had each other's weak points. These years, Tun Dun and Du Lin had been constantly fighting each other. It was just that their strength was similar and neither could do anything to the other. But now Du Lin did not refute Tun Dun. In other words, the demon ancestors of the god worship sect might really not take action? Then would they still have a chance of winning this war? Just like Lin Yuan's initial concerns, the so-called art of war and strategy could indeed have a certain effect in this world. The premise was that the overall strength of both sides was similar. Only then could they find other ways to make up for the odds of victory. But the current situation was, one side had ancestral demon realm experts backing them, while the other side didn't even know if their own ancestral demon realm experts would attack. If you think of my god-worshipping sect that way, then you are wrong. As a languid voice rang out, the surrounding seawater immediately flowed in reverse and gathered, forming a dragon-shaped creature made of seawater. However, compared to the true dragons of the Four Seas dragon race, this dragon-shaped creature was more like the Western dragons from Lin Yuan's previous world. It had no horns on its head, a lion's body, a lizard's head, and a pair of large bat wings on its back. However, when Lin Yuan differentiated between Eastern and Western dragons in his previous life, he always liked to say that Western dragons had wings while Eastern dragons didn't. In fact, this is a false statement. Because one of the four great divine dragons, the winged dragon who assisted the Yellow Emperor in unifying the world and cooperated with Hamba to break the formation of bitter wind and bitter rain, was actually a true dragon with wings on its back. It was just that it didn't have a lizard's head, a lion's body, or bat wings. In fact, the image of a true dragon that people generally believed was just a patchwork image in some legends. No one knew what a true dragon looked like. After all, the dragon race didn't have reproductive isolation. The so-called 9 sons of the dragon were all different. Even the 9 sons of the ancestral dragon looked different, let alone the true dragon, that was a mixture of countless bloodlines. There was an interesting saying in the dragon race's inheritance. After the Yellow Emperor defeated Shinnong and Chiyu, he summoned the leaders of all tribes and clans to the Pusan Alliance in Zhulu County, which was also known as the Fusion Talisman of Pusan in history. Since then, all the feudal lords respected Shen Yuan as their emperor. During the fusion process, the Yellow Emperor took a part of the tribal totems and formed the totem of the people of Huaxia, the dragon. But that was what was recorded in human history. In the dragon race's inherited memories, the winged dragon wasn't the Yellow Emperor's subordinate. The relationship between the two was more like that of an ally, not the so-called superior and subordinate relationship in the legends. The Fusion Talisman of Pusan was the winged dragon's request after its success. It redefined the dragon's image in the eyes of humans, which was the image of a camel's head, deer's horns, rabbit's eyes, ox's ears, snake's neck, snake's belly, carp's scales, eagle's claws, and tiger's palms. The head of a camel was tenacious and indomitable, the horns of a deer were cautious, the eyes of a rabbit were sharp, the ears of an ox were hard-working. In other words, after the winged dragon assisted the Yellow Emperor in unifying the world, it didn't just go to the south to enjoy life without any desires. After the war, the winged dragon directly changed the image of the dragon race in the eyes of humans. The so-called 9 appearances of the divine dragon encompassed almost all the beauty and power of the world in the dragon race. Anything that involved the dragon race would inevitably become lofty and noble. Even the emperor later called himself the true dragon son of heaven. It was clear that the winged dragon's planning and layout had brought great benefits to the dragon race and itself. The dragon race became the totem of humans. Even at the point of time in Lin Yuan's previous life, after the feudal superstitions had been completely destroyed, the Chinese still considered themselves the descendants of the dragon race. But what about the winged dragon? What did it get? In many of the Taoist books, the winged dragon appeared as the god of creation. Listen. Creation. World. God. Back then, the Yellow Emperor was definitely in existence stronger than the winged dragon. Otherwise, the winged dragon wouldn't have been misunderstood by many as the Yellow Emperor's subordinate. But what about the Yellow Emperor's ending? One of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors summed it up. Was this an identity that could be compared to the god of creation? Even his own daughter, Hidorigami, was gradually demonized and even completely degenerated into a demon. The Yellow Emperor could only imprison her. From this, it could be seen that after the fusion talisman Fushan incident, the winged dragon used the dragon totem to harvest an enormous amount of incense power. Even the dragon race of the 4 seas, which had a little bit of influence, could be said to be incomparably powerful. Which place would not pray to the Dragon King when there was a drought? The dragon race's power even extended to the time when the heavenly Tao was hidden and the human Tao was revealed. Although no one knew what happened during this period, the biggest slap in the face for the dragon race in history was when the Jinghe Dragon King was killed by Wei Zheng. A civil official with no cultivation base could have an out-of-body soul in his sleep and kill the Jinghe Dragon King. After that, the Jinghe Dragon King's soul came to Li Shimin for revenge. Li Shimin only ordered Qin Qiong and Yu Qigong to guard the door at night, and directly scared off the Jinghe Dragon King's soul. Although it was hard to say whether the historical materials were true or false, the powerful people who made up stories often met with bad consequences. The story of Wei Zheng slaying the dragon was still passed down. Just from these words, one could imagine how far the dragon race had fallen during that period. Chapter 989. Greetings, ancestral monster Ing Zai. Alien bowed to the water avatar that resembled a western dragon. The monster known as Ing Zai nodded and sneered, although my god-worshipping sect is not world-renowned, we will never do something that slaps our own faces. Since we have agreed to help, we will not go back on our word. This seed has come today to tell you that the ancestral monster of the dragon bloodline will definitely intervene when the outer sea monsters invade the deep sea. When the time comes, we will also intervene. Even if we cannot defeat the enemy, we will do our best to ensure that the outer sea monsters can return to the outer sea. Mutant, Tundin and Du Lin bowed to Ing Zai. Du Lin in particular had a look of fear in his eyes. It was as if he was worried that Ing Zai would come after him because of what he had said. This scene made Lin Yuan, who was watching coldly from the sidelines, laugh coldly. No matter which side the ancestral monster was from, they would not easily intervene. These powerhouses, who had been famous for many years, were different from Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan could also erupt with the combat prowess of an ancestral demon by consuming the power of incense. Moreover, once there was a need to use the power of incense, Lin Yuan would never be stingy. Just like the 3 million incense that Lin Yuan had obtained from spreading the words and theories of his previous life, he had used it to summon a big boss to help him. Before that, he had also spent nearly 200 million incense to create the Empress Arsenal to set up the southern cultivation world. But these ancestral monster experts were different from Lin Yuan. They had not cultivated to become true gods, and their lifespans were limited. After so many years, their lifespans had already been exhausted. They could only rely on Joss flame power to prolong their existence because this world was not yet complete and the 3 realms and 6 paths of reincarnation had not yet appeared. They were similar to the Een gods of humans, but they had their own bodies and absolute autonomy. Ordinary monsters and cultivators would expend stellar energy or monster power in battle. On the other hand, most universe-enlightened ancestral demon realm experts didn't exhaust Joss flame energy in battle. To them, it was simply like expending their lives, and a casual move of theirs might cause them to lose a few years of their lifespan. Once Joss flame energy was completely exhausted, then even true gods might fall into deep slumber, whereas, the outcome of these false gods was death on the spot. So, unless it was absolutely necessary, the ancestral demon realm experts wouldn't interfere in anything. Unless it was like this battle. Once the dragon bloodline demon beasts and the outer sea demon beasts started fighting, the numbers on both sides would definitely decrease rapidly. At the same time, the ancestral demon realm experts would obtain less and less Joss flames. It could be said that their lives were truly threatened. The mutant was in the Tao initiation realm and might be about to enter the sovereign realm. However, after Lin Yuan's personal observation, he was certain that the mutant was still short of the process of accumulating incense power. Without hundreds of years of hard work and accumulation, it would be difficult to enter the sovereign realm or the transcendent realm. The other 2 leaders were even weaker. They were only in the Monster King realm. With such a combination, they naturally wouldn't know what kind of actions would infuriate the other party's demon ancestor. The god-worshipping religion on the outer sea demon beast side was the same. The source of their incense power was mainly from the outer sea demon beasts. In this battle, almost all of the outer sea demon beast youths had gathered to form such a huge team. If too many of them were to die here, they would naturally be affected. God-worshipping religion, dragon god temple, sea demon guild's demon ancestor. Lin Yuan's gaze flickered slightly, but he still let out a long sigh. Previously he was still too hasty. The endless sea might look sweet, but outsiders wouldn't be able to imagine the dangers hidden under this beautiful sea if they weren't personally involved. I have to put the endless sea's matter aside for the time being. Lin Yuan turned his head and looked at Cyrus beside him and said calmly, "The overall situation is still under your control. However, some of the details and decisions should be left to Jiaoyi. That child isn't stupid, but it will always be under our wings. It will be difficult for it to grow into a true king. So, you just have to grasp the rhythm and don't let the city of trade completely go astray. When I return next time, I will make these arrogant existences pay a painful price." Yes. This subordinate will do his best and not disappoint the Dragon King today. Cyrus bowed slightly and replied in a sincere tone. In the past, Cyrus would most likely infiltrate the city of trade and hold such a treasure in its hands. However, after peeking at part of Lin Yuan's plan, Cyrus decisively gave up those tempting thoughts. This Black Jiao wasn't on the same level as it from the very beginning. Even the second-rate sage that it was a little annoyed with back then was actually a compliment to the current Cyrus. More importantly, Lin Yuan's goal was probably extremely terrifying. Even the West Sea Dragon King, who had only sensed the clash of the three powerful auras, didn't dare to make a move. They didn't dare to provoke Lin Yuan, let alone Cyrus, the demon king that was in the city of trade at that time. Sky Martial Continent? Endless Sea? Ah. Perhaps this level of achievement was a supreme hegemony in the eyes of most humans and demon beasts, but to Lin Yuan, this kind of low-level world wasn't worthy of those terrifying existences behind it. Compared to being a country bumpkin in the Sky Martial Continent, Cyrus wanted more to cross over the Sky Demon and see other worlds. It wanted to find those experts who had left their mark in history and finally resolutely stepped out of the Sky Gate, disappearing without a trace. From Cyrus's point of view, the guardians of the Gate of Heaven were nothing more than a bunch of cowards. The experts who had left never returned, so they assumed that there was endless danger outside the Gate of Heaven. Even if they reached the limits of the Qianwu world, they would still die in another world after leaving the Gate of Heaven. However, they hadn't even found or recovered a single corpse so far. Didn't that mean that those experts who had left the Sky Martial Continent hadn't died, but were unwilling to return because they had seen an even more vast world? Cyrus, who was aware of its own aptitude, knew that with its own strength, it might not be able to step into a higher realm or leave the Sky Martial Continent in its lifetime. However, if it followed Lin Yuan, that would be a different story. How difficult could it be for an expert who could kill ancestral demon realm experts like killing dogs to create an existence above the Demon King realm? Lin Yuan nodded slightly. His pitch-black body shot forward like a sharp arrow, easily breaking through the restraints of the sea as he rushed in the direction of the Sky Martial Continent. Chapter 990. Half a month later. The northern frontier, Shunning City. Li Zhong looked at the busy cultivators of the Ministry of Works with bloodshot eyes. His breath was chaotic and his qi and blood were weak. He looked very dispirited, as if he had not rested for days. Without rest for a few days, a mortal would indeed become dispirited and dispirited. However, for cultivators, even if they did not eat, drink, or sleep for half a year, they would not show any abnormalities on the surface. Therefore, Li Zhong's current appearance was definitely much weaker than he looked. Because not long ago, a mysterious expert named Qi claimed to be an old friend of the Dragon King and sent a piece of extremely terrifying information. The existence that spread the method of killing the immortals in the northern frontier did not use the nine-tailed phantom body. However, they did belong to the Fox clan, but not the Fox clan of this world. The Fox clan, which was considered a big clan in the Hengduan Mountains, was not even qualified to carry the shoes of those great demons. Qingxiu, Tushan, Su and Pure Fox. They came from the four great fox clans of the primitive world. According to the expert named Qi, the great demons that secretly interfered in the matter of the immortals were either from the Su clan or the Chenghu clan. These two clans had many demons that brought disaster to the country. For example, the Su clan once had a nine-tailed fox demon named Su Daji, who wreaked havoc in a powerful country called Yinshang. Although King Zhou of Yinshang was a human, his cultivation was tyrannical and he was known as the Human King. No matter if it was immortals, gods, or demons that entered the territory of Yinshang, they all had to obediently bow their heads. Whoever dared to be presumptuous would die. However, such a powerful country was ultimately defeated by a fox demon. Thinking about it carefully, Li Zhong felt that it was inconceivable and terrifying at the same time. The other Chenghu clan was not simple either. Although there was no famous great demon mentioned by Qi, in history they worked together with a human called Han Qi to destroy a country called Yu country, and killed a mighty person called. These two fox clans were famous for bringing disaster to the country. Now, one of them or even both of them had their eyes on the northern frontier. Li Zhong did not know about the four great fox clans, but he knew about the existence of the nine-tailed fox. This was because there was a legend about the nine-tailed fox in the Sky Martial continent. However, it was only a legend. Even in the era when those unknown almighty people were cultivating in the Sky Martial continent, the fox clan only had seven-tailed fox demons. These seven-tailed fox demons would often choose to leave the Sky Martial continent through the gate of heaven and disappear without a trace. However, there were rumors circulating within the fox clan that the reason why the seven-tailed fox demons left was to pursue the eight-tailed fox Dao, which was stronger than the seven-tailed fox demons. There were even rumors that there was a nine-tailed fox demon above the eight-tailed fox demons. The seven-tailed fox demon could be said to be an almighty person who could turn the world upside down with a wave of his hand. According to the legends, the eight-tailed fox demon was undying and indestructible. Even if it was completely destroyed, it could be resurrected. At most, one of its tails would be broken and it would be temporarily weakened to the seven-tailed fox demon's strength. The even more terrifying nine-tailed fox demon was only a legend. As for the true terrifying might, those ancient creatures did not even dare to think about it. The so-called secret technique of the fox clan, nine-tailed illusion, did not refer to the real nine-tailed fox demon. It was just a description of how powerful this illusion technique was. In reality, in the Qinwu world, if a nine-tailed fox demon was truly born, it could exterminate countless experts with a single breath. Why would it need to use a mere illusion technique to bewitch the masses? Li Zhong had never imagined that the legendary nine-tailed fox demon actually existed. Furthermore, in the wilderness there was more than one nine-tailed fox demon. Furthermore, they were not considered powerful characters. Even if they could bring calamity to a country, they were just pawns in the hands of others. Although he did not know what kind of existence the wilderness was, Li Zhong was very clear that whether it was the wilderness or the four great fox clans, to the current northern frontier, it would be a complete and utter disaster. You've been busy for so long. Have you gained anything? Li Zhong reached out to grab the Minister of Work's sleeve and asked in a tone that was close to pleading. He did not know what they would face in the northern frontier. However, he was certain that the Blackwater Dragon King, who was hidden in the northern frontier, definitely had an extraordinary background. For the sake of their current plan, they could only make preparations with the help of the Dragon King's guidance. Otherwise, when disaster struck, they would be no different from ants. They would not even have the chance to struggle. The Minister of Works was silent for a moment before slowly saying, "We have gained something. However, I'm afraid that you won't believe me if I say it." Having said that, he gently waved his sleeve, indicating for Li Zhong to follow him. The two came in front of a huge glass window. The Minister of Works raised his finger and pointed at the figure in the observation cabin. The figure was still squirming and struggling after being wrapped up by layers of bandages covered with dense black runes. He said, "This guy is one of the undyings that we caught before. Because we happened to be studying it at that time, Lei Fan did not rescue it. So far we have not caught any maternal undyings. The ones sent by the Blackwater Army were basically the original residents of the northern frontier. They were transformed into undyings after being affected by the death aura after they died. We could not find anything from them at all." Having said that, he reached out and pressed the glass window in front of him and said in a deep voice, "Only this guy is our last hope. Although we have done all kinds of experiments to kill it, all of them ended in failure. After receiving your order to modify, we changed our strategy and carried out all kinds of research on this special undyings such as dissecting and slicing. In the end, we found a kind of liquid in its body. After that, we sealed it and waited for the Dragon King to return before making a decision." Liquid. Li Zhong paused for a moment. His eyes were bloodshot as he growled almost hysterically, "What kind of liquid did you extract? You actually hid it from me? If I hadn't been here every day, you would never have told me." The Minister of Works let Li Zhong grab his collar and growl. After Li Zhong calmed down a little, he gave his deputy a look and continued, "Yes, I didn't intend to tell you about our experiment. This is just in case. You know the nature of the Ministry of Works. Once we start work, We will never leave the Ministry of Works before we have a thorough research result. But you are different. You are the king of the northern frontier. You have your own things to do. We have no authority to force you to stay in the Ministry of Works to keep this secret. Chapter 991. I can temporarily hand the matters at hand over to Li Xian to handle, so, can you tell me now? Li Zhong slowly loosened his grip on the minister's collar, and the chaotic aura on his body gradually calmed down. His abnormalities were basically all due to stress, and since the Ministry of Works had already produced results, he did not need to feel so much pressure anymore. The black water of the underworld. The Minister of Works suddenly opened his mouth, interrupting Li Zhong's words. Li Zhong's pupils suddenly shrank, and the aura on his body that had gradually calmed down with much difficulty actually showed signs of becoming chaotic again. The Minister of Works was shocked, and quickly realized that this king of the northern frontier was about to go crazy. Don't panic, listen to what I have to say, but remember what I have to say. After knowing all this, before the Dragon King returns, I will not let you leave the Ministry of Works. I'm sorry, this is a serious matter, and if you insist on leaving, then I will have to resort to emergency measures and kill you right here and now. The Minister of Works stretched out his hand to pat Li Zhong's gradually tensing muscles and suddenly said, Actually, you have all overlooked one thing, and that is the timing of the appearance of the Undying, or rather, because of the terrifying threat that the Undying brought, you have all subconsciously overlooked the matters of the past, and thought that the Undying was another matter, and not an extension of the previous matter. And Lei Fan, Luo Su and the likes, had used this timing to deliberately lead you all in the wrong direction and sank deeper and deeper. Overlooked? Sometime in the past? Lei Fan Luo Su? Deliberately led? A series of key words flashed across Li Zhong's mind. Very quickly Li Zhong reacted and said in a hoarse voice, What you mean is, the Undying was actually not created by Lei Fan and the existence behind him to cause chaos in the northern frontier, but a certain matter in the northern frontier that was not handled properly, and thus caused trouble in the future. Instead, Lei Fan and Luo Su used it as their protection and led our investigation in the wrong direction, so this matter is the elixir of immortality? Yes, the appearance of the Undying is indeed a consequence of the elixir of immortality, and this is the result of your investigation being wrong. Back then, the Dragon King had given the Ministry of Works some samples of the elixir of immortality for research, and according to our research, the so-called core of the elixir of immortality is actually a kind of liquid similar to the Dragon King's nether realm black water, and the appearance of the elixir is actually a kind of special metal, and the purpose of its existence is to imprison the core of the elixir of immortality, because our investigation showed that although the liquid in the core of the elixir of immortality is similar to the nether realm black water, the former has an unimaginable activity, and rather than saying that it is a kind of special liquid, it is better to say that it is a kind of special life form. On the other hand, the nether realm black water that Lord Dragon King left in the northern frontier, although it can also form all kinds of undying creatures, in the end, it is a dead object, and if there is no external force to activate it, it is really just a pool of stagnant water that will eat everything that enters it. And those who consume the elixir of immortality will gradually develop all kinds of violent, crazy, and hateful negative emotions, and they need to constantly consume the elixir of immortality to suppress these negative emotions, or else they will die an extremely painful death. Your investigation stopped here, and you believe that the Sky Demon used the elixir of immortality to control part of the officials in the northern frontier, and force them to work for him. Furthermore, in your subsequent cleanup operation, you rescued and killed all the people who consumed the elixir of immortality. Think again, the place where you buried the bodies of those who consumed the elixir of immortality is today's forest of hungry ghosts and the plains of earth, right? After thinking about this, it is naturally not difficult to associate the so-called Undying with the origins of this. The Minister of Works sneered and said, I believe that the so-called Undying is actually a side effect of the elixir of immortality. Without continuing to consume the elixir of immortality to maintain the activity of the mysterious liquid, the people who consume the elixir of immortality will naturally be completely dominated by all kinds of negative emotions, and thus turn into monsters. In addition, the elixir of immortality has a characteristic similar to the nether realm black water, so what appears in front of you is an undying monster. Hearing this, Li Zhong had a complicated expression on his face. After all, the elixir of immortality was an extremely evil thing. Other than the initial use of the elixir of immortality to lure out the other elixir of immortality, The rest of the elixir of immortality and the elixir of immortality had been dealt with by Li Zhong as soon as possible. He did not even think about what kind of trouble it would cause in the future. However, from the looks of it now, the undying that ran rampant in the northern frontier today were most likely the people who consumed the elixir of immortality and turned into monsters. No, this doesn't make sense. Li Zhong quickly shook his head again, biting his lip, and said, "Even if your explanation can explain the origin of the undying, how do you explain Lei Fan and the batch of undying that first appeared possessing spiritual intelligence? Then have you ever thought about why Lei Fan did not hesitate to expose his own existence and his trump card, Luo Su, in order to save those undying that possessed spiritual intelligence, despite knowing that we are unable to kill the undying? Why is it that those undying that they painstakingly saved never appeared again, and instead, a large number of undying with low spiritual intelligence appeared? Is it because you can't think of the reason behind this, or is it because you don't dare to think of the reason behind this? Actually, you are very afraid, aren't you, Li Zhong? You are afraid that when you were playing games with Lei Fan and Luo Su, you made several mistakes in succession, which led to the current disaster that has befallen the northern frontier. If you can't think of it, I don't mind telling you, because the amount of the elixir of immortality is extremely limited. That black water behind the scenes had initially gathered all the elixir of immortality and created a batch of highly intelligent undying. Using this as the foundation, he created the Northern Restoration Society to secretly sabotage the northern frontier. Under the joint efforts of all of you, the Northern Restoration Society was destroyed, Lei Fan was exposed, Luo Su was exposed, and you even captured those undying that first appeared and brought them back to the northern frontier, didn't you? In fact, the activity in this liquid will be constantly depleted, and when the activity level is extremely high, the transformed monsters will also reveal spiritual intelligence that is not inferior to ordinary people. However, the higher the activity level, the faster it will be depleted. Therefore, after accomplishing his goal, the existence behind the scenes must retrieve the first undying, kill them, and extract the elixir of immortality from their bodies, and use it to create more undying, which is the various low-level undying that we faced later on. The Minister of Works reached out his hand and knocked on the glass window in front of him, saying coldly, "This first undying was like that. At this moment, its spiritual intelligence has degenerated to the level of a 3-year-old child, and it can no longer communicate with us. At the same time, it has shown an extremely strong desire to attack, so I had no choice but to seal it away." Chapter 992. The Immortals were just a group of people whose consciousness had been wiped away. Their bodies were driven by a special liquid similar to the black water of the underworld. That was why they had the desire to attack like wild beasts and had the characteristic of being unkillable. It turned out that from the beginning to the end, the so-called Immortals were just mistakes caused by a moment of negligence. Instead, they were used by the other party as an existence like a protective umbrella. It had always involved the attention of the entire Northern Frontier Intelligence Agency, constantly leading them away from the truth. "I'm such a king idiot," Li Zhong cursed in his heart. But very quickly Li Zhong raised his eyebrows and said, "But even if you explain it this way, logically speaking, there is no problem. But how do you explain Lei Fan? He had clearly been killed by the cultivators of the sect of the Blood God. I have personally verified his corpse. But now, not only has Lei Fan been resurrected as an immortal, he has also stirred up a storm in the northern frontier, not allowing us to have a moment of peace. I never said that Lei Fan was not an immortal." The Minister of Works sighed and tilted his head to the side to say, "What I mean is, the Immortals are existences similar to medicine men. Lei Fan is essentially no different from the other Immortals. It's just that we don't know how much of the elixir of immortality the other party still has in their hands. So, they can continuously feed Lei Fan medicine to maintain the activity of the elixir of immortality in his body, so that he will not degenerate into a low-level immortal without spiritual intelligence. As for the Immortals under our control, because they have not taken medicine for a very long time, the activity of the elixir of immortality in their bodies has continuously turned them into monsters." Li Zhong sucked in a breath of cold air. His eyes flashed and he asked doubtfully, "According to what you said, does it mean that the one who is hiding behind the scenes and making use of the Immortals to plot against us is still the Sky Demon?" "It's possible but not likely." The Minister of Works clasped his hands together, yawned and said, "If the Sky Demon is behind all this, then he should know about the situation on the northern frontier. As long as he launches a fierce attack while we are divided to defend against the undead, our front line will soon collapse. especially since the Styx creatures left behind by the Dragon King are almost all fighting against the undead. The threat to him is further reduced. At this time he chose not to attack the northern frontier, but to turn around and attack the south. Isn't this clearly giving us a chance to breathe? Furthermore, after yawning, the Minister of Works opened his bloodshot eyes and said, "When we completely dissected the undead, we found that there are no organs or bones in the undead's body. They are more like a kind of monster with only flesh and blood. Besides instinct, they don't even have any emotions. The sky demon can't possess such an existence. In other words, if the northern frontier falls and becomes a paradise for the undead, this area will have no value to the sky demon." That's an interesting way to put it. Suddenly Lin Yuan's voice sounded behind the two. The Minister of Works and Li Zhong turned around with a look of surprise. The Ministry of Works was the department with the highest level of secrecy in the entire northern frontier. Besides Li Zhong and Lin Yuan, no one else had the authority to know any information about the Ministry of Works. And the location of the Ministry of Works was not fixed. Just like the safe house set up by the Imperial Secret Service, the Ministry of Works would move every once in a while, and after the move, the members of the Nightbusters would disguise themselves as Ministry of Works personnel to continue the operation. And other than not researching any secrets, the fake Ministry of Works was no different from the Ministry of Works. So if one wanted to find the real location of the Ministry of Works, unless Li Zhong or Lin Yuan took the initiative to tell them, they would find nothing. Previously, Luo Su had been trying to find out information about the Ministry of Works, but the results were not great. If not for the undead being sent to the Ministry of Works for research, Lei Fan and Luo Su's operation would not have endangered the Ministry of Works at all. Lin Yuan's body floated in the air in front of the glass window. He glanced at the undead who were wrapped up like mummies, and his gaze was slightly solemn. At the beginning, he also thought that these undead were the handiwork of some almighty person related to the underworld. But if such an existence really appeared, the vacant position of the underworld king would immediately have an owner. After all, the heavenly sovereign had already appeared. If another underworld king appeared, the sky martial world would be able to create 3 realms, and make itself into a complete world. So the will of the world chose Lin Yuan because Lin Yuan had a higher possibility of becoming the underworld king. It was not that Lin Yuan was the only choice. And after eliminating the first possibility, there were other methods to transform the sky martial world into the underworld. That meant that the existence behind the scenes was very likely to be a god of the underworld, and had used the Nether River ancestors' Nether Blood Sea or something similar. But the appearance of a god of the underworld from another world in the sky martial world was tantamount to a declaration of war against the will of the world. Even if it had a supreme divine ability, it would have to first subdue the will of the world, or else it would not be able to use the underworld method. That was why Lin Yuan had always been suspicious. These undyings that had suddenly appeared were very likely to be existences similar to medicine men. Because the first batch of undyings that had appeared did not conform to the 3 types of undyings: corpse, bone, and soul. They were more like cultivators that could not be killed by conventional methods. The northern frontier, the sky demon, and even the untainted desolation creatures were just pawns in the hands of the other party. I'm beginning to wonder about this person's identity. Lin Yuan narrowed his eyes and muttered, "He can mobilize the members of the Pure Fox and Yusu Fox clan, and also use the Nether Blood Sea to cultivate medicine men similar to the untainted. He doesn't even care about untainted desolation creatures like Hamba, but he is not an untainted desolation creature. So how did this guy know about the secrets of the untainted desolation world? Even I don't know how to use the Nether Blood Sea. I'm afraid that other than the Blood River ancestor, only the Sky Demon God knows how to use it. He is an existence on the same level as Hongjun without the support of the heavenly Tao." That's right, that mysterious existence was most likely not an untainted desolation creature. Because with such a terrifying existence surrounding him, even if Lin Yuan had the will of the world and the origin of the heavenly Tao to protect him, he would still be ruthlessly bitten off a piece of flesh by the other party. If his reaction was not fast enough, it was not impossible for him to be killed by the other party's scheme. Based on this premise, if this mysterious existence was an untainted desolation creature, then when they were in the Endless Sea, Hongjun would not have sent a consciousness across the endless space in an attempt to kill Lin Yuan. This huge threat came from another world, but knew the secrets of the untainted desolation world. Chapter 993. If that outer god is not a primitive creature, but knows the secret that only the Sky Demon God can know, I think there is only one possibility left. Although it is unlikely, didn't you say in your previous life that after eliminating all the impossibilities, the remaining answer will definitely be the truth no matter how unbelievable it is? Amazing Tongtian, you are amazing. As Lin Yuan muttered to himself, a line of words slowly appeared in Lin Yuan's mind. Lin Yuan was confused. However, the doubt only lasted for a moment, and a look of realization flashed across Lin Yuan's eyes. As everyone knew, sect leader Tongtian, who was one of the Sanqing sects, respected education regardless of background. During the God's Investiture tribulation, the Ren school and the Chan school looked down on the Jie school, thinking that the subordinates of sect leader Tongtian were all hairy and ovalized. Although the three sects had expressed their participation in the God's Investiture tribulation at the same time, the Ren school and the Chan school had joined forces to target the disciples of the Jie school several times. Sect leader Tongtian, who was angry, did not hesitate to fight with the Heavenly Lord Yuanshi and the Heavenly Lord Daoda, who were also Sanqing sects. He did not even regret the destruction of the Jie school. Especially in the last battle of the 10,000 Immortals formation, except for the incongruence Divine Mother, who was not tainted by the tribulation aura, who was ordered by sect leader Tongtian to wait for an opportunity to escape unscathed. The rest of the disciples either died or were taken away as mounts. It could be said that their fates were extremely miserable. However, speaking of which, it was natural for the Jie school to be destroyed. After all, among the three sects, only the Jie school did not have a magic treasure that could suppress fate. Moreover, the Grandmaster of Heaven had used the power of the Jie school to fight against the Ren school and the Chan school at the same time. Even the Western sect had joined in the fun. They had sent away countless disciples of the Jie school in the chaotic battle to strengthen the foundation of the Western sect. Among the 6 sages under Hongjun, except for Nuwa who had always stood aloof from worldly affairs, almost all of them had participated in the encirclement of the sect leader of Tongtian. As an indestructible sage, the sect leader of Tongtian should have known that his defeat was inevitable when the immortal slaying sword formation was seized. Otherwise, he would not have let the incongruence Divine Mother escape in advance. Since he knew that he would lose, it was not impossible that he did not know that the long-ears Dingguang immortal had already become a traitor and was unwilling to wave the six-soul banner at the cost of his own soul being destroyed. However, he still did not replace him and insisted on letting the long-ears Dingguang immortal wield the six-soul banner, laying the groundwork for his own defeat. This kind of behavior was tantamount to hammering the nail into his coffin. However, judging from the abnormal behavior of the system during this period of time, the sect leader of Tongtian might not have really lost. Sanqing, as the supreme deity in the history of Taoism, could be said to be the twin brothers of Sanqing. It was impossible for there to be an unsolvable death between the three of them, especially the leader of the Ren sect. He had always been the leader of Sanqing, the big brother of the Tongtian and the primeval lord of Tongtian. Even if his 2 younger brothers quarreled with each other, the Grand Lord of Tongtian would play the role of the peacemaker. The war between the Jie sect and the Chan sect was because the disciples of the primeval lord of Tongtian had repeatedly injured and even killed the disciples of the Jie sect, and even humiliated them. The sect leader of Tongtian had said to the primeval lord of Tongtian, "Senior brother primeval lord of Tongtian, your disciples of the Chan sect do not care about the brotherhood of fellow disciples, repeatedly injuring the disciples of the Jie sect, and humiliating the disciples of the Jie sect. Aren't you saying that I am also a beast? If I am a beast, then what are you, the primeval lord of Tongtian?" Therefore, because of the physical and verbal conflicts between the disciples of the Chan sect and the Jie sect, the sect leader of Tongtian and the primeval lord of Tongtian completely broke up. In the process, the Grand Lord of Tongtian did not show the appearance of a big brother. Instead, he took sides and led the disciples of the Ren sect to join forces with the Chan sect, and directly destroyed the Jie sect. What was the reason that made Sanqing, who was like a brother of the primeval lord of Tongtian, break up? Was it really because the Grand Lord of Tongtian and the primeval lord of Tongtian loved their disciples and did not want their disciples to be immortals who were ordered by others on the list, so they joined forces to fight against the disciples of the Jie sect? What was the reason that the Grand Lord of Tongtian did not even persuade them, but directly joined forces with the primeval lord of Tongtian to bully him? Was it really because of the non-discrimination education of the Grand Lord of Tongtian that stimulated the Grand Lord of Tongtian and the primeval lord of Tongtian? Thinking of this, Lin Yuan suddenly had an idea and murmured, "It's like this? It's actually like this." After the battle between the three sects, the Jie sect was destroyed. The sect leader of Tongtian led the remaining disciples to fight and retreat. He once said, How can I have the face to control the Azure Palace after this defeat? Anyway, I will not rest until I work. Now I will return to the palace and establish the earth, water, fire, and wind again. Let's change the world. After that, the sect leader of Tong Tian was summoned by Hongjun and given a fatal red pill. From then on he rarely appeared. However, thinking about it, Hongjun's pill did not kill the sect leader of Tong Tian. The reason why the sect leader of Tong Tian rarely appeared was probably because he had already established the earth, wind, water, and fire and formed his own world. After forming his own world, the world would definitely not be perfect. Saints like Hongjun could not descend into it. Even if the world was perfected later, the sect leader of Tong Tian, who was supported by the heavenly Tao of the new world, would no longer be in existence that could be controlled by Hongjun. Almost all the big shots in the untainted land were the gods of creation. Perhaps they were stimulated by the fact that the sect leader of Tong Tian had successfully broken free from the identity of a prisoner. The Grand Supreme and Premier joined hands to destroy the Jie sect. Except for some unlucky ones, most of the disciples of the Jie sect did not die. They either became immortals on the list of deification, were captured as mounts, or were transported by the Western sect. Anyway, most of them survived. Obviously, this was not in line with the sect leader of Tongtian's posture of taking out the Six Souls banner and fighting with the 10,000 Immortals formation. Therefore, the Grand Supreme and Premier were actually hiding from Hongjun. They secretly helped the sect leader of Tong Tian to complete some plans by sending the disciples of the Jie sect to the list of calamities. They made the sect leader of Tong Tian establish the earth, wind, water, and fire and form his own world. From then on, he broke free from the identity of a prisoner. Just like how countless creatures of the untainted land had used the great tribulation of heaven and earth to break the untainted land several times to escape, there was no difference between the two things in essence. They were both trying to get rid of Hongjun's control. Thinking about it this way, most of the disciples of the Jie sect survived. The sudden betrayal of the long-eared Dingguang immortal who was in charge of the Six Souls banner made sense. The three brothers were acting from the beginning. They did not mean to fight to the death at all. However, after the lesson of the sect leader of Tong Tian, Hongjun was obviously on guard. After establishing the journey to the west, he set up the theory of yin and yang and the five virtues, planned to kill Hao Yin, and supported Zhang Bairen to become the Jade Emperor. Everything went smoothly. After that, the secular world was derived until the Tang dynasty. The Western sect suddenly intervened and completely shattered the Wukong in the Grand Supreme's heart. The Grand Supreme was ruthlessly beaten by the Grand Supreme. Therefore he could not transcend the untainted land and was still a prisoner under Hongjun. Throughout the untainted land, since Hongjun merged with the Tao of Heaven, the only mighty person who got rid of the identity of a prisoner was the sect leader of Tong Tian. Amazing. Chapter 994. If the truth that had been buried by history was true, then the origin of the outer god would be clear. Most likely he came from the world created by Tong Tian. After all, with Sanqing's identity, he knew the use of the Nether Blood Sea formed by Pangu's navel and how to use it. Even the Nether River Patriarch, the so-called master of the Nether River, would know much more about it. No, you said Tong Tian earlier. Could it be that Tong Tian's real body is also in this world? Lin Yuan's heart suddenly moved, and his eyes became strange. The Qinwu world was not a complete world. The strength of a true god was the ceiling of this world. In other words, most creatures born in the untainted land were unable to set foot in this world. So far Lin Yuan had seen the untainted land creatures. In the history of the untainted land, he had believed in someone he should not have believed in. In addition, he was unlucky and was chased by the demon master Kuanping and the Nether River Patriarch. Not only did he lose his physical body, but if not for the protection of the 99 soul-scattering gourd, even his primordial spirit would have been lost. An unknown Luoyu. Even if he had displayed extremely powerful strength, he was still a famous existence in the Classic of Mountains and Seas. Everyone knew that rather than saying that the Classic of Mountains and Seas was a book that recorded ancient strange beasts, it was more accurate to say that the Classic of Mountains and Seas was a book that recorded the location of precious ingredients that ancient humans had sorted out. It was extremely valuable. Most of the Classic of Mountains and Seas would have a sentence at the end of the introduction of the strange beasts. How do you eat it? Hamba's strength was extremely terrifying. At present, Hamba definitely had the strength of a true god. Even if the world was repaired, Hamba still had the combat strength of a golden immortal in the untainted land. These three creatures of the untainted land could not be said to be weak. After all, even in the martial arts world during the Dharma ending period, those who could make a name for themselves were considered heroes. Moreover, in the untainted land where Daluo was everywhere and Tai was as common as dogs, those who could leave their names behind were not to be trifled with. Not to mention that Hamba relied on his background. Although this was a factor in terms of battle results, even the great formation of bitter wind and bitter rain, which could trap even the winged dragon, collapsed when encountering Hamba as if it had met its nemesis. This was enough to prove Hamba's strength. It must be mentioned here that the so-called Tai Golden Immortal and Daluo Golden Immortal had no difference in terms of realms. They were the next stage of the Golden Immortal. If one had to find the difference between the two, Daluo Golden Immortal referred to the disciples of the three religions, the Western religious sect, or the disciples of some powerful sections. Daluo Golden Immortal was a disciple of the three religions, the Western religion, or the disciples of some powerful sections. Daluo Golden Immortal. This was the only difference between the two titles. Of course, in theory, Daluo Golden Immortal with a professional background was stronger than Tai Golden Immortal. Therefore, in some web novels, it was not a problem to set Daluo Golden Immortal as the advancement of Tai Golden Immortal. After all, Daluo Golden Immortal was already considered a genius when he or she reached the realm of Tai Golden Immortal. But if one wanted to go further, he or she had to find a powerful sect or cave and rely on the title of a professional background. Only in this way could he or she learn the cultivation methods and corresponding magic arts of a higher realm. Therefore, if one wanted to become a sage to be or even a sage, he or she really had to change from a Daluo Golden Immortal to a professional background, just like many actors who used to be minor roles would choose to study in a film academy after they became famous. Therefore, Lin Yuan had never doubted the possibility that there was a limit to the capacity of the heaven martial world. Otherwise, what he saw in the boundless sea would not have been as simple as a projection of Hongjuan's consciousness. But sect leader Tongtian. Well, sect leader Tongtian's strength was probably not at the level of a sage. After all, the so-called similar difference between a heavenly sage and a real sage was limited to the untainted world. A real sage who had achieved Daluo origin was still a sage after leaving the untainted world, while a heavenly sage could be said to be nothing after leaving the untainted world. After all, Goddess Nviwa had obtained boundless merit after she created human beings. Throughout the myths, the status of human beings had always been very awkward. Gods and Buddhas all over the world treated human beings as leeks to harvest the power of incense. Even some famous monsters liked to eat human beings to improve their cultivation. But after careful consideration, human beings seemed to be an irreplaceable existence in the eyes of these mighty figures. No matter how harsh they were to human beings, these mighty figures would not sit and watch human beings perish. From this, it could be seen that the merit of Goddess Nviwa, who created human beings, was probably not inferior to that of Yinglong, the descendant of the divine dragon. Therefore, although Goddess Nviwa did not achieve Daluo origin, after all, she had become a sage through merit, which was no different from a real sage. And the origin of Sanqing was not simple. Many legendary Sanqing were transformed by Pangu's primordial spirit. Although they were not born as sages, they were the strongest ones in the untainted world in terms of foundation and talent. Only the sky demon could suppress them. As one of the Sanqing sect leader Tongtian had left the untainted world and lost his identity as a heavenly sage. But after all, he had his own world to support him. His strength was probably even greater than when he was in the untainted world. Especially in his world, his power was almost the same as that of Hongjun, who was in harmony with the way of heaven. Even if he went to other worlds without the strength of a sage, any one of the Sanqing would have the strength of a sage to be. Sect leader Tongtian is indeed in this world. But it is also possible to say that he is not here. You know the saying of one chi into Sanqing, right? According to the memory of your previous life, some people say that one chi into Sanqing refers to Pangu's death after the creation of the world, and his primordial spirit transformed into Sanqing and reappeared. But according to the oldest book about one chi into Sanqing in your world, the so-called one chi into Sanqing refers to the deification period. When the Grand Elder and sect leader Tongtian fought, they used this skill to transform one chi into Tai Qing, Yu Qing and Shangqing. Therefore, it is called one chi into Sanqing. Not only the Grand Elder knew this skill, but sect leader Tongtian also knew it. But sect leader Tongtian did not use this skill to transform into Sanqing, but himself in the past, present and future. You can see him as a young sect leader Tongtian, a middle-aged sect leader Tongtian, an old sect leader Tongtian and the original sect leader Tongtian. The one in this world is one of this Sanqing, transformed by sect leader Tong Tian, but you don't know which one it is. The system replied slowly. Past, present and future? Lin Yuan was slightly stunned and asked subconsciously, the Western religious sect has 3 Buddhas, past, present and future. Are they also? My young host, haven't you heard of the saying that Buddhism is Taoism? Even the name of the abbot of Buddhism was borrowed from Taoism. Later on, people thought that it was exclusive to Buddhism after it was called so many times. In addition, the wooden fish also originated from Taoism. Chapter 995. Lin Yuan was silent for a while, but soon he felt relieved. After all, in the history of the untainted land, the 6 sages were all Hongjuan's disciples. Since the Grand Elder and Tong Tian could create Sanqing, it seemed that the Western religious sect, which was extremely shameless in the history of the untainted land, could learn this skill and take it as their own. It seemed that it was acceptable. In the end, the so-called Qi into Sanqing was just like Hongjuan's 3 separations technique. In addition, I only know that an incarnation of Tong Tian exists in this world, but I don't know what he is up to. However, since you are going to the untainted world to fight against Hongjun, you will have to deal with this incarnation of Tong Tian sooner or later. Let me tell you. Don't trust Tong Tian just because you are on the same side as him. Otherwise you won't even know how you die. After all, even that guy has suffered losses from Tong Tian. You don't need to worry about Tong Tian. What's more, Tong Tian's real body will definitely stay in his own world like Hongjun and won't step out easily. What's more, the strength of his real body is not something that the current heaven martial world can bear. Therefore you'll have to face his incarnation in the future, but you have to know which incarnation you're facing. If it's the young Tong Tian with your cultivation at that time, you might not have to fear him because he's the weakest, at most comparable to a fairy immortal. After leaving the untainted land and losing the support of the way of heaven, he may only have the strength of the peak of the earthly immortal realm, which means he'll enter the realm of true God, but he's just a step away from the deity realm. If you can reach the limit of this world, you won't have to fear him. However, the young Tong Tian's mind is the most cunning, so you have to be careful of being tricked by him. In theory, the middle-aged Tong Tian has the strongest cultivation. When I was in the untainted land, I saw with my own eyes that the middle-aged Hongjuan's qi power was comparable to that of a sage-to-be, and there were records of him killing primordial creatures of the untainted land more than once with the help of the way of heaven. Even now, he may have the strength of a golden immortal. You can treat him as Hamba in his peak state. He's not good at scheming, but he's temperamental. If you provoke him, he may even suppress you directly. Finally, the old Hongjun. His cultivation is probably not as high as that of the middle-aged Hongjun. He usually has a cheerful and kind face to confuse those who don't know his background. But the old Tong Tian's incarnation of Tong Tian was the most unfathomable one. Basically, except that guy, all the people who had seen the old Tong Tian's emotional fluctuations were all dead. This is the most important hint. Listen carefully. If you provoke one of the incarnations of Tong Tian's Sanqing, you'd better kill him as soon as possible. Don't let the other 2 incarnations come to join him, because the incarnations of Sanqing can merge with each other. Once they merge, their strength will be almost the same as that of the original Tong Tian within 30 minutes. If the original Tong Tian arrives, it means that you have to deal with 2 sages at the same time. When the system displayed these words, it also made 3 different projections in Lin Yuan's sea of consciousness. The first projection was of a man wearing a blood-red brocade robe. A black jade pendant hung from his waist, and 6 swords floated behind him. He didn't look like a great cultivator with a terrifying cultivation base. Instead, he looked more like a young man from a noble family in the mortal world. The second projection was of a middle-aged man like the first projection. Although he was no longer extraordinarily handsome with red lips and white teeth, he could still be regarded as handsome. His temperament was less roguish and vigorous than that of the first projection, but he was more calm and composed. The blood-red brocade robe was also replaced by a white robe with a dark green scholar's robe. The black jade pendant on his waist was replaced by a black jade thumb ring on his right thumb. The swords behind his back disappeared and turned into an unopened bamboo scroll. He looked more like a learned scholar than a cultivator. And the third projection, it was an old man with white hair and a white beard with a face full of wrinkles. He was wearing a brown Taoist robe over a purple luxurious robe. He sat on a lotus throne and held an ink-black jade rui in his hand. Looking at it carefully, one could see that its divine light was restrained, and there was no trace of lethargy. What is that ink-black jade? Lin Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly as he asked in his mind with a puzzled face. Apart from their appearances, the only similarity between the three incarnations of Sect Master Tong Tian was that they all had a piece of ink-black jade. It was just that this piece of ink-black jade had turned into a jade pendant, a thumb ring, and a jade rui respectively. However, when similar things appeared in different forms, it was hard not to think that there might be some secrets behind it. World Fragment. The three projections I showed you are the records of Tong Tian using the qi into Sanqing in the Eldritch world. I can't be sure whether he has changed his appearance or not, but the only thing I can be sure of is that both his original body and his incarnations have a piece of ink-black jade on them. It is a treasure that Tong Tian obtained when he went out to explore a different world. It was also because of this item that he proudly called himself a world and got rid of that guy's control. After all, Taishang had done something similar before, and so did many other creatures of the Eldritch world. However, they did not have such a treasure. Even if they did create a new world, it would be a small world under the jurisdiction of the Eldritch world. Let alone getting rid of that guy's control, it would even further strengthen that guy's strength. The ink-black jade on Tongtian's incarnation of Sanqing should be the product of his creation. After he created his own world, he kept expanding it, then cut off a part of it and turned it into ink-black jade for his incarnation of Sanqing. Because of this ink-black jade, the three incarnations can borrow the power of the heavenly Tao from the Tongtian realm. Although it is not strong and has a time limit, the power they can unleash in an instant is enough to defeat opponents who are used to the incarnation's strength. Lin Yuan. Using the treasures he obtained from the outside world as a blueprint, he could create a new world and even expand it. Although Lin Yuan didn't know the specific operation method, he knew that expanding a world required a lot of effort. After successfully expanding the world he established, the sect leader of Tongtian was so bold that he could even personally cut off 3 of the pieces and make them into black jade for his incarnation equipment, so that his incarnation could kill strong enemies and escape safely no matter when and where it was. In other words, Tongtian, this mischievous guy, might be much stronger than what he had shown in the past. Chapter 996. So what we can be sure of is that Luo Yu Hanba, Taoist Red Cloud, Tongtian sect leader, and a few others who have yet to appear but are most likely members of the recipe. Yes, perhaps there are also members of the Fox clan, Pure Fox and Yusu, as well as countless Sky Demon. As for those who are not natives of the Qianwu world, there is me, and the one behind the scenes who is very likely to be an outer god from the Heavenspan realm. Lin Yuan lightly clicked his tongue and muttered, if it was just a group of stragglers who escaped from the great desolate world, it wouldn't be a big deal. But now the key is that Tongtian sect leader's incarnation is in this world, and a god from the Heavenspan realm has also come to this world. In addition, there is the mysterious dragonization route in the underwater secret realm. So, I'm afraid that there is a big secret in the Qianwu world. What kind of almighty existence was Tongtian sect leader? Whether it was age or cultivation base, as long as one reached Tongtian sect leader's level, even if it seemed like he casually placed a chess piece, it was possible that at a critical moment yin and yang would be reversed and the world would be turned upside down. Even Xianzi was like this, let alone the Grandmaster of Heaven. This time, the Grandmaster of Heaven placed a piece on one of his incarnations. I suddenly thought of a possibility. The projection released by the system suddenly disappeared, and even the words were somewhat shaky, as if it had discovered something incredible. I thought of it too. Lin Yuan was silent for a moment, then said in his mind, Hongjuan's origin could be said to be unfathomable. Some people classified him as one of the 3,000 ancient demon gods, while others said that Hongjuan's original body was just a cricket. Of course, there were also people who said that Hongjun was the world's first dragon. But without exception, Hongjun had cultivated to become a saint, and was not innately powerful like the 3,000 ancient demon gods. For existences like Hongjun who had reached the peak step by step, ordinary small matters would not alarm him at all. It was hard to say how many hosts the system had, but at this stage the system definitely had the fewest hosts. In the past, there were even existences like Luo Ho and Yi Zhu who could directly confront Hongjun. But even so, Hongjun stayed in the great desolate world and did not prepare to kill Luo Ho and Yi Zhu in advance. This was not because Hongjuan's strength was not enough, but because of the confidence of an expert. He thought that Luo Ho and Yi Zhu could not threaten him, so he did not bother to care. So, why did Hongjun send a projection of his consciousness into the Qianwu world to try to kill him directly? Hongjuan's strength. He was not a big threat to Hongjun. To all. Hongjun, he did not. He was not to Jun was. He was or. Unless, that guy's attack on you is unprecedented, so my guess is that he calculated his own death tribulation and followed it to the martial heaven world and you. But thinking about it carefully, is it possible that his death tribulation is in the martial heaven world but not you? Is it possible that his death tribulation is in the martial heaven world but not you? Is it possible that his death tribulation is in the martial heaven world? After Hongjun stole the way of heaven, it was separated from the original part of the way of heaven. For countless years, it had been cultivating strong people, trying to return to the untainted land and regain control of the way of heaven. It had seen countless monstrous geniuses and strange people. Among these countless monstrous geniuses, Lin Yuan could only be regarded as a maverick, because he had almost completely abandoned the previously planned cultivation plan, just like those demonic beasts who were unwilling to follow the footsteps of their ancestors despite having a bloodline inheritance. They had to walk a path that was more powerful than their ancestors. If such an existence did not fall due to some accident, sooner or later, he would become a powerful figure. Lin Yuan was like that. Although he had abandoned the powerful path that had been planned before, he still grew at a terrifying speed. That was why it thought that he was the most likely host to defeat Hongjun. But it felt that it was only its opinion. If Hongjun also felt the same, then it was too strange. Luo Ho and Air Zhu had not moved Hongjun in the past, let alone Lin Yuan, who was not even an immortal. So, the biggest possibility was that Hongjun's death trial was indeed in the Tianwu world, but it was not Lin Yuan, the host of the system. It was the Tong Tian who had joined forces with Taishang and Yuanshi to defeat Hongjun during the investiture of God's tribulation. Thus, he was able to transcend the untainted land and establish his own world. After all, a simple comparison would show that Lin Yuan and the Tong Tian were together. No matter how one looked at it, the latter was a bigger threat to Hongjun. I don't think so. Lin Yuan thought for a moment and made his own judgment. Then he thought with a serious face, first, the Tianwu world is indeed a broken world, but it has not evolved into the will of the heavenly Tao, yet it already has the terrifying strength to contend with you. This is the first anomaly. Also, I have not seen the other untainted land creatures that appeared in the Tianwu world, but Red Cloud Taoist, Hanba, and even Luo Yu were all existences that left their names in the history of the untainted land. I don't believe that they chose to stay in such a world because they did not want to fight with that guy anymore. With their experience, it is impossible that they did not know that the world would repair itself. If they stayed here, they would not be able to take a step forward. Once the world is repaired and the untainted land army comes, they would not be able to resist at all. This is the second anomaly. At this point Lin Yuan paused. His gaze swept across the Ministry of Works minister, Li Zhong, and the nearby Ministry of Works members. Then he added in his heart, the untainted land's path of cultivation started from the beginning. Later on that guy proved his Tao and created the immortal path of cultivation. It was a natural development. The Tianwu world's path of cultivation was created by countless gods and Buddhas outside the gate of heaven. They cast down countless paths of cultivation and various spiritual seeds. This is a cultural invasion from the outside. However, those invaders did not occupy the Tianwu world. They only left behind their inheritance and hurriedly left this world. This is the third anomaly. Anomaly? Interesting. Continue speaking. As Lin Yuan's points were mentioned one by one, the system's interest was piqued. I'm not too sure if there are other anomalies, but what I can be sure of is that when there is an anomaly, there must be a demon. There must be some secrets in the Tianwu world that we do not know about. And this secret is most likely known by the Tong Tian sect leader, but he is not clear about it. Therefore, he left an incarnation in the Tianwu world in order to find out the secret of this world. Based on this hypothesis, Red Cloud Taoist, Hanba, and the other untainted land creatures might have found out about the secret of this world through their own channels. Chapter 997. Don't forget that Red Cloud Taoist was also a disciple that guy thought highly of. If it weren't for Urshi of the West, the 6 saints would be Sanqing, Nuwa, Kunpeng and Red Cloud. Urshi of the West would have nothing to do with them. Although Red Cloud was a nice guy, as the way of heaven of the untainted land, you must know how bad the environment in the untainted land is. After confirming that Taoist Red Cloud was a nice guy, we realized that Taoist Red Cloud was also a scheming person. After all, other creatures in the untainted land would not create such a character for themselves. Therefore, it was not difficult to think that it was not Urshi of the West who set Taoist Red Cloud up. Instead, it was Taoist Red Cloud who set Taoist Red Cloud up. He set Urshi of the West as a prisoner, then destroyed his own body with the help of Kun Peng and escaped to the world of heaven martial arts. Amba was the same. As the daughter of the Yellow Emperor, she was the favored daughter of the heavens. No matter how she was demonized later on, it was undeniable that she was the only one other than Ying Long who didn't hold a position in the heavenly court and became an immortal who was bound and controlled. From this, it's not hard to see how much the Yellow Emperor loved his daughter. Hamba's escape from the untainted land was most likely part of the Yellow Emperor's plan. After all, he was one of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. He was a terrifying existence who ruled the world and was crowned with the title of Emperor when he was immortal. I don't know how powerful the Yellow Emperor was when he was at his peak, but he definitely wouldn't send his beloved daughter to a dead world. Then what was the reason that made Red Cloud Taoist and the Yellow Emperor choose the Qianwu world at the same time? What was the reason that made Tong Tian, who escaped from Hongjun, leave an incarnation in the Qianwu world? Those gods and Buddhas who placed their cultivation techniques and spiritual item seeds in the martial heaven world definitely didn't come from the desolate world. I've also seen some of their ancient cultivation techniques. Although they're mostly the same, for example, there are Buddhist, Taoist, Confucian and so on, but in terms of details they're not the same. Why did these deities leave their legacies in the sky martial world? And why did they suddenly leave this world? The biggest possibility is that they were like the sky demon. They wanted to invade this world, but in the end they left because they were afraid of something. Lin Yuan's eyes gradually lit up and he asked, "Do you think Hongjuan's death retribution exists in the Qianwu world, but it is not me, nor is it Tong Tian sect leader but a secret in the Qianwu world? It could be a cultivation method or a magic treasure. There's a high probability that it's a powerful existence that can kill that guy, or even kill him who's one with the heavenly Tao." Lin Yuan's hypothesis was very bold, but it was very possible. Hongjun had created countless cultivation methods. The so-called Buddhism and Taoism were one family. They were all created by Hongjun. Even the Confucian cultivators and the Yin-Yang school that gradually declined in Huaxia and became the national religion of Japan were born from the cultivation methods created by Hongjun. However, even if such cultivation methods were cultivated to the extreme, there were only 5 great Taos. The so-called heaven, earth, man, ghost, and God, immortals belong to the heavenly court and ghost immortals belong to the underworld. Although the other 3 Taos could be cultivated, they were not as powerful as the desolate world creatures. The great Taos cultivated by the most ancient desolate world creatures were actually the same. Whether it was the Taoist school led by Sanqing, or the Buddhist school led by Tathagata and Dipankara, what they fought for in the end was nothing more than faith and incense. In the heaven martial world, after the ancestor monster realm and the supreme realm, the true God realm, there was no need to continue to advance. It was all about cultivation and magic power, which was another name for the power of incense. Cultivate slowly? No matter how powerful a character was, how could he be more powerful than Hongjun? After the true God realm, there was no difference in aptitude. It all depended on who had more believers and who had more incense. When one reached the extreme of cultivation, only the monkey Yang Jian and Neza could fight against the heaven and earth. However, Taishan could easily injure the monkey who was on par with Yang Jian with a Vajra bracelet. Tathagata could also seriously injure or even kill Lu Er, who was also one of the 4 spiritual monkeys, with one palm. Those below the true God realm were all ants. Because the difference between the true God realm and those below the true God realm was like the difference between the celestial Dipper realm and the Zephyr realm. The level of power they used was completely different. Even though Hongjun had made countless enemies over the years and fought against thousands of worlds, the foundation of the desolate world was there. The incense that could be accumulated over countless years was too much. Even the amazing Luo Ho and Yi Zhu were defeated by Hongjun, weren't they? The thing that could kill Hongjun was never an individual, but a powerful foreign object that could kill him. For example, among those desolate world big shots who were called the gods of creation, only Tong Tian got rid of the identity of a prisoner. It was because he got a treasure that had nothing to do with the desolate world that he was able to create a world that was not bound by Hongjun and become an existence at the same level as Hongjun. Well, if Tong Tian didn't enter the desolate world, he was indeed in existence at the same level as Hongjun. Unless Hongjun came in person, the other 5 saints couldn't defeat him in the Tong Tian world even if they joined forces. Of course, if Hongjun came in person, there was a high chance that the Tong Tian world would explode, and then he would perish together with Tong Tian. That guy divined that his death tribulation would be in the Qianwu world, but he couldn't find a Tong Tian at the same level as him, so he thought that I was his death tribulation. But in my opinion that's not the case. The secret of the Qianwu world is his death tribulation. Right now, Tong Tian and those desolate world creatures are all looking for the secret of the Qianwu world. Although we're lagging behind, it's not too late to react. If we can find out what the secret is, we'll have the power to kill him. Tong Tian isn't his death tribulation, I'm not his death tribulation, and neither am Red Cloud Taoist and the others. But if I'm not wrong, even he has divined his death tribulation, which means that the secret is about to be revealed. Any one of us can figure out this secret and get the thing that can kill him. Think about it, the biggest change in the Qianwu world after so many years is... Lin Yuan's eyes were piercingly cold and his mind was spinning rapidly. World completion. At the same time, the system added 3 huge exclamation marks. It was completely convinced by Lin Yuan. Although Lin Yuan didn't have any evidence, it couldn't find any loopholes in Lin Yuan's thinking. Chapter 998. The world is divided into big thousand, medium thousand, and small thousand. Although the 3 levels of the world are said to be 3,000, in fact, the number of worlds existing in the Sea of Bitterness has always been a mystery. Rather than saying that there are thousands of worlds, it is better to say that it is endless. Thousands of worlds is just a name to describe the huge number. Just like the so-called DC and Marvel worlds in the comics of Lin Yuan's previous life, there are parallel universes. Even if it is an ordinary world, it may be secretly related to several or even dozens of parallel worlds. Even if it is a saint-level existence, it is difficult to set foot in every world. The heavenly court had 33 levels of heaven. It did not mean that there were 33 levels in the sky, but that after entering the gate of heaven, the first level was the immortal world. Like a building, each level of heaven was a different world. The so-called 33 levels of heaven referred to the 33 worlds occupied by the heavenly court. Of course, the 33 levels of heaven did not refer to the exact number. The eldritch world had been conquering thousands of worlds for many years, and had plundered and devoured more than 1 or 2 worlds. The eldritch world had once nurtured extremely terrifying existences. The so-called 3,000 demon gods were the manifestation of the rules. It was a big deal for 1 or 2 of them to appear in an ordinary world. The eldritch world could nurture 3,000 demon gods, and in this aspect, it deserved to be called the strongest world. However, the eldritch world was not an exception. Even if other worlds were not as powerful as the eldritch world, they would more or less give birth to some extremely terrifying existences. It could be an invincible creature, or it could be the manifestation of rules, like the 3,000 fiend gods, or it could be a supreme treasure with the power of rules. Even if a mortal wielded it, it could kill gods and fiend gods. What is brewing in the Qianwu world is most likely a supreme treasure. Red Cloud Taoist is looking for it, Tong Tian is also looking for it, and in the future that guy might join the ranks of the people looking for this supreme treasure. If I can get it, this war that has spanned countless spacetime may come to an end. Lin Yuan's eyes flashed and he said silently, and you'd better pray that I'm the one who gets it in the end. The system was silent. In fact, from the beginning to the end, Lin Yuan didn't have much desire to control everything. He was more like a hard-working worker, doing his best to make himself stronger, then waiting for an opportunity to kill Hongjun, then returning to his original world to take revenge. As for whether he lived in seclusion or pretended to be an ordinary creature, it didn't matter. On the contrary, ambitious people like sect leader Tong Tian and Taoist Red Cloud would not change anything even if they killed Hongjun once they got hold of such a treasure. The only thing that changed was the title of the top existence in the untainted world. Perhaps Lin Yuan wasn't trustworthy. But compared to those two, it was more willing to believe in Lin Yuan. While thinking, the system suddenly said, even if your analysis is correct, no matter what the secret of the Qianwu world is, it will definitely appear with a world-shaking event. Currently, the most likely event to cause the supreme treasure to appear is when the Qianwu world gathers the Heaven Sovereign, the Human King, and the Underworld Sovereign, then completes the 3 realms and gives birth to the 6 realms, completely becoming a great world. But that also means that the saints from the untainted world will descend here. Do you think you can deal with Tong Tian, Hong Yun, the untainted saints, the Heaven Sovereign, and the Human King at the same time? It's not that I want to pour cold water on you, but I think that you don't have to participate in this matter. As long as you grow quickly after the battle between that guy and Tong Tian, no matter who wins, our opportunity will naturally come. You still don't understand what I mean. Lin Yuan sneered twice in his heart and continued to recite, now is not the time for me to participate or not. It's about you, are you willing to bet all your chips on the Qianwu world? Bet that the secret here can definitely kill that guy and completely end this war. Me? What should I bet on? The system was slightly startled, as if it didn't react. However, its acting was clumsy. Lin Yuan saw through it at a glance and understood what he meant, but he didn't want to bet on it. In truth, it doesn't matter if you don't want to bet. However, I can tell you directly that if Tong Tian obtains this priceless treasure, his chances of victory will be at least 70%. Even if his world isn't as strong as the chaotic world, that guy won't be able to make the chaotic world work together with him. In truth, they are existences of the same level. With the support of the priceless treasure, Tong Tian won't lose to him. Then you won't be facing him but Tong Tian, who has the support of the heavenly Daos of 2 great worlds and a priceless treasure. So I personally suggest that you terminate the contract with us hosts. You can go die and we'll go our separate ways. So right now you only have 2 choices. The first is to bet on it and help me become an existence that transcends the heavenly Daos of the Tianwu world. At that time, even if I have to face the encirclement of all sides, I won't necessarily lose. Once I obtain that priceless treasure, we'll have the initiative. Tong Tian will have to join hands with us to liberate the chaotic world. Then, the 2 of us will keep each other in check and you'll regain control of the heavenly Daos. The 3 of us will form a very stable triangular relationship. With the priceless treasure in my hand, I won't be able to defeat Tong Tian without your help. Tong Tian won't be able to defeat us if we join hands, and you won't be able to defeat me and Tong Tian. Of course, you can also choose to give up on participating in this battle. I don't know how well you've prepared, but there's an old saying in China. To deal with external problems, one must first settle internal problems. Both Tong Tian and Hong Jun understand this principle. Once Tong Tian obtains that priceless treasure, he'll have the power to directly challenge that fellow. Sooner or later, the 2 of them will have to fight. But before that, they'll definitely join hands to eliminate your host so that you won't be the one to pick up the spoils. Even if you're lucky enough to escape this encirclement, all the hosts you've managed for so many years will be killed. I'll be conservative, but for at least 30 years, you won't be able to interfere in anything related to the chaotic world. After 30 years, no matter who wins or loses, they'll have the support of the heavenly Daos of 2 great worlds. Adding on a priceless treasure that can kill him, your chances of winning will be 0. Lin Yuan's appearance from his previous life appeared in his mind's sea. His clear eyes were filled with ridicule. He sneered, "Then I'll ask you one more time. Do you want to bet or not? This is my personal opinion and I respect your choice. So this is the last time I'll advise you to join hands with me." Chapter 999. At this moment, the Ministry of Works encampment alarm rang. The Minister of Works' face darkened slightly. He looked at Lin Yuan, who seemed to be deep in thought, and said in a deep voice, "It's not an internal alarm. It's Shunning City. I'm afraid there's an undefeatable existence in Shunning City. Someone at the northern frontier prince's mansion has sounded the alarm. Should we evacuate or?" Li Zhong's gaze also fell on Lin Yuan. He chuckled and said, "Let's wait for a while. Don't forget, our Dragon King has never tasted defeat since he was born. So what if it's a difficult opponent?" At the same time, Lin Yuan, who was interrupted by the alarm, turned his head. His blue-white vertical pupils flashed, and endless demonic energy poured into the eye of God. He grasped all the movements in the surroundings in his palm, and then continuously expanded the range of his observation. A moment later, 1 person and 2 demons appeared in Lin Yuan's vision. It was the Dean of the Northern Frontier Academy. Other than Yi Bilan, he was the strongest humanoid creature that Lin Yuan had created. His full power was not inferior to an existence at the 4th level of the Void Realm. At this moment, the Dean was like a little chick being held by the throat by an extremely beautiful woman. There was no trace of pain on his face. Instead, it was filled with longing. 2 extremely beautiful women, or rather 2 extremely beautiful demonesses, were walking step by step toward the Ministry of Works encampment. Along the way, all the cultivators and demonic beasts of the northern frontier did not even have time to show hostility to the 2 demonesses. Like the Dean, their faces were filled with longing, and they followed behind the 2 demonesses like walking corpses. The advancing group was constantly expanding. "Fox demons," Lin Yuan murmured, and a trace of seriousness flashed in his eyes. The most terrifying thing was that the 2 extremely beautiful demonesses had faces that Lin Yuan was very familiar with. The one walking in front had 6 fluffy snow-white fox tails behind her back. Her face was Lin Yuan's mother. After that upheaval, in order to cover for Lin Yuan's escape, his mother took the initiative to appear and lead the pursuers in the opposite direction. Otherwise, that night Lin Yuan's entire family would have been wiped out from the world. The aura of the one at the back was much weaker. She only had 5 foxtails behind her, and they were all golden in color. It seemed like she was not from the same clan as the 6-tailed demon fox in front. Her face was the only woman in his previous life who had moved Lin Yuan's heart. She was also the only woman who could make Lin Yuan feel some warmth when he was in dire straits. Later, her enemies found her and threw her down from the 21st floor in front of Lin Yuan. Even her bones could not be found. As his demonic power surged, Lin Yuan could easily cover up the other party's illusion. When part of the face was covered up, Lin Yuan saw 2 demonesses walking on 2 legs. However, once the cover was removed, the 2 incomparably familiar faces would appear again. This was not an illusion. Like other clans, the Fox clan paid attention to the talent of cultivation. However, except for the Tushan clan and the Qingqiu clan, the other 2 clans of demonesses and those ordinary demonesses with mixed bloodlines could be seen by all the people in the universe. The Fox clan was best at illusion. There was a kind of demoness who was born with charm. Even if they did not perform any illusion, they could make the creatures who saw them see what they most longed for, missed, and yearned for. There was a word to describe this kind of demoness in Lin Yuan's previous life. The so-called natural charm referred to this kind of demoness at the beginning. Daji of the Su clan was one such demoness. Under the influence of the natural charm, she was able to make the human world compete with the cultivation world and suppress the North D clan, the South Barbarian clan, the West tribe, and the East Barbarian clan. Lin Yuan did not know about the other 3 clans. However, in the East Barbarian clan at that time, there was a clan called the Yoqiong clan. Ho Yi who usurped the throne of the Xia dynasty. He was not the Ho Yi who shot the sun in the period of the 5 emperors, but they were often confused with each other because they had the same name and were good at shooting, was the head of the Yoqiong clan. King Zhou of the Shang dynasty was famous for his bravery when he was young. He suppressed the other kings by himself and fought against the entire cultivation world, which was enough to prove his great talent. However, such a great talent was bewitched by the naturally charming Su Daji and made a series of extremely dangerous government orders. Therefore, the civil and military officials of the Zhou dynasty who were ordered to build the heavenly court were killed when the main forces of the Shang dynasty were fighting outside. Even the tribe of Jiazim, which was involved in helping the Shang dynasty, was destroyed by the other 2 sections. The disciples of the tribe of Jiazim either went to the Western religious sect or were taken away as mounts or sent directly to the list of deification. It was the biggest defeat recorded by the Tongtian hierarch who schemed against Hongjun. But now, the naturally charming demoness appeared in front of Lin Yuan, and there were 2 of them. One of them was destroyed in the extremely powerful Shang dynasty. What about the other 2? Was the family property of the northern frontier enough for them to do anything? Damn it. You appeared in front of me in such an appearance. Are you prepared to be dismembered, have your soul extracted, and be washed by the black water of the nether realm until you become barren of time? Lin Yuan stared at the 2 familiar faces, and the corners of his mouth slowly widened, revealing an extremely ferocious smile. Black gas surrounded his body, and the last sentence was almost a roar. Even though he knew that the other party's appearance was an illusion, Lin Yuan was still tempted. Little Black Jiao, I found you. The 6-tailed demon fox suddenly smiled and looked at the Ministry of Works. After all, the aura that belonged to Lin Yuan suddenly burst out, and he had no intention of hiding it. Anyone who was not blind could sense Lin Yuan's existence. Lin Yuan sneered and said coldly, Demon Fox, this king will give you a suggestion. Use an illusion to cover your charming bones, and this king can promise to let you suffer less when you are alive. Hearing this, the 2 demon foxes were slightly stunned. Was this Black Jiao crazy? They came from the Su clan and the Chenghu clan respectively. They were natural foxes with charming bones that appeared once in 1,000 years. Ordinary creatures would immediately put down all their hostility when they saw them. At the very least, they would let down their guard. After all, those creatures only saw the beauty that they yearned for the most, unless it was someone who killed their wife to prove their Tao. However, how difficult was it to kill one's wife to prove one's Tao? Not to mention that there were many people who could kill their wives to prove their Tao. If they could do it so easily, it meant that they had never loved. The so-called wife had always been a tool in their eyes. Could it be that this Black Jiao was the kind of existence who could kill his wife to prove his Tao? After 3 seconds, Lin Yuan's cold voice sounded again. Negotiations have failed. Since that is the case, this king will let you experience all the pain in this world. He will then wipe out your physical bodies, extract your primordial spirits, and wash them with the black water of the nether realm for countless years. He will let you sink into loneliness and pain until the end of all things. Chapter 1000. Boom. As soon as he finished speaking, the demonic energy of level 8 of the desolate demon realm surged out. The various equipment, tables, and chairs of the Ministry of Works were pushed aside. Even the Ministry of Works minister and Li Zhong were flushed red from the impact of the demonic energy. Their blood and qi were turbulent, and it was difficult for them to suppress it even with their qi aura. They could only retreat more than 5 kilometers to avoid Lin Yuan's demonic energy. As for the inanimate objects that couldn't leave on their own, they were in an incomparably miserable state. Countless containers containing unknown liquids shattered, and all sorts of precious materials turned to dust. A thick black aura wrapped around Lin Yuan's body, but it was incompatible with the black scales. The two types of black were completely different. Lin Yuan's scales were pure black, and the black gas that wrapped around his body was like the ultimate black. Even if the sky was clear at the moment, it could not eliminate such a black color. All the light that approached Lin Yuan would be swallowed by the black gas. In an instant, the area of 5 meters around Lin Yuan was as terrifying as the night, where one could not even see one's own 5 fingers. When powerful cultivators or demonic beasts attacked, they would use all sorts of fancy techniques. However, the true killing move would be when they gave up all special effects to test each other and engaged in close combat. And the black aura around Lin Yuan was clearly not a special effect. It was an anomaly, the sign of becoming demonic. Li Zhong opened his mouth. The Ministry of Works minister immediately stretched out his hand in front of Li Zhong and said in a low voice, "You're King crazy. If you want to die, don't drag me down with you. I don't know what's going on outside, but without a doubt, they've touched the Dragon King's bottom line. Right now, the Dragon King is surrounded by a vicious aura that will swallow and annihilate anything that gets close to him. Even if you and I get close, we'll end up the same way. So the only thing we can do now is wait for the Dragon King to kill the invaders outside and then calm himself down." What if the Dragon King can't calm himself down? Li Zhong paused and asked with a resentful expression. He also didn't know what was going on outside, but in an instant the Dragon King had entered a demonic state. Without a doubt, the invaders this time had broken a certain fragile string in the Dragon King's heart. The Ministry of Works minister was silent for a moment and said bitterly, "From now on, there will be no more Blackwater Dragon King in this world. There will only be one Blackwater Dragon King, bringing endless slaughter and disaster to the world. Our Dragon King has such ability." Hearing this, Li Zhong felt a bitter taste in his mouth. Where the hell did these invaders come from? At the same time, a figure descended from the sky and crashed into the night around Lin Yuan almost instantly. Then it completely disappeared without a trace. Strangely, the moment the figure disappeared, the irritable Lin Yuan actually calmed down. Although the night around him still existed, his demonic energy no longer went berserk. The night also stopped expanding. At the very least, Li Zhong and the Ministry of Works minister didn't have to worry about being swallowed by the night if they didn't retreat. What is that? Li Zhong's expression changed. His gaze was somewhat sluggish. The invaders of unknown origin, the Dragon King who suddenly went berserk, and the figure that appeared and disappeared out of nowhere, was this northern frontier still the northern frontier he knew? At the same time, in Lin Yuan's consciousness world, Lin Yuan, who had transformed into his previous human form, had his hands behind his back. He expressionlessly looked at the void 3 miles away and said indifferently, "This king wants to kill those 2 fox demons now. I don't have time to play with you. I'll give you 2 breaths of time to scram back to where you came from." The void cracked open, and a pitch-black monster that looked like an aberration walked out from the crack. It opened its mouth, revealing a long purple tongue that licked its face. 6 scarlet compound eyes slowly opened up on its head, and it said with a hideous smile, "Black Jiao Dragon, I've been in this world for 3 years. This is the first time you've lost your mind, and there are signs that you're about to turn into a demon. You want this sovereign to leave? Don't even think about it." Even the mutated monster itself had not expected that all of its plans and schemes would be completely nullified by the Black Jiao Dragon. It had initially wanted to see if Lei Fan would be able to find a chance to strike after he had destroyed the Black Jiao Dragon's plans in the south. Never would it have thought that before Lei Fan had even made his move, Just the appearance of two fox demons within the Black Jiao Dragon's line of sight was enough to cause it to lose its composure. How could it miss such an opportunity? Consume the power of incense to manifest the 4 celestial slaying swords. Lin Yuan said indifferently. When his voice fell, a golden light flashed on his consciousness, and the power of 17 million incense flames disappeared. Immediately, 4 giant sword phantoms with murderous aura suddenly appeared. The appearance of each sword was different, but the fiendish aura contained in them made one's heart palpitate. The 4 celestial slaying swords. How do you know it? The alien monster's expression changed suddenly. Its 6 scarlet compound eyes opened wide, as if it could not believe what it saw. It was originally a creature from the Tongtian realm. How could it not know the means of the Tongtian sect leader? The 4 celestial slaying swords fell into the hands of the Tongtian sect leader. During the apotheosized tribulation, on the eve of the destruction of the Jie sect, the Tongtian sect leader had set up the celestial slaying sword formation before practicing the 10,000 immortals formation. Later, when he was besieged by the 4 sages, the Taoist priest rode the green ox into the formation and turned into Sanqing to break the celestial slaying sword formation and take away the 4 swords. Celestial slaying sword formation out. Lin Yuan said indifferently. The 4 ancient swords shook at the same time and turned into sword shadows that swept across the sky. Almost in the blink of an eye, they sealed off the alien monster's escape routes. Then, the boundless murderous aura on the 4 ancient swords turned into red light and surged out. It was as terrifying as the sky crying for blood rain. Lin Yuan only used the power of incense to copy the celestial slaying sword formation. If the real celestial slaying sword formation was activated, each red light had the power to kill a sage to be at the peak or even severely injure a primordial chaos daluo. However, to deal with an alien monster that was not even a true god, the real celestial slaying sword formation was indeed not needed. Damned fellow, do you think a mere illusion can scare me? After a short moment of surprise, the alien monster quickly recovered. Its eyes turned cold and a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood suddenly appeared around it. Boundless murderous aura and resentment soared into the sky and crashed into the blood-red light that fell from the sky without fear. After all, this was the world of consciousness. There was nothing that could not be visualized. However, the power of those imaginary things was still determined by the power of the primordial spirit. However, this thought only lasted for a moment. It suddenly found that the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood, murderous aura and resentment it had visualized could not withstand the rainstorm-like red light of the sword chi and were easily penetrated. The red light of the sword chi did not even wear out and continued to shoot toward it. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.